Chapter 30-37. The seventh ancestor glared at Ling Hujie and said, "Second ancestor, I've personally examined his soul. There's nothing wrong with it. To say that he's a fake is to accuse me of betraying the Soul Sacred Clan." An ancestor betraying the Soul Sacred Clan was no laughing matter. The second ancestor looked at Ling Hujie and said indifferently, "Can you take responsibility for your words?" In a sense, Ling Hujie was accusing the seventh ancestor of shielding an outsider. Ling Hujie immediately shrank back. He was merely jealous of Ling Huyang's rapid progress. He had no confidence in whether or not he was the real Ling Huyang. The second ancestor looked at him indifferently. "If you don't, then shut up. Don't embarrass yourself again." In the eyes of the older generation, Ling Hujie's narrow-mindedness was detestable, even if he was his own descendant. Ling Hujie was given the cold shoulder and walked back in embarrassment. However, Ling Huyang's ability to comprehend several ancestral techniques in a row is indeed problematic, the second ancestor said. The seventh ancestor said, "What do you mean, second ancestor?" The second ancestor said, "Let him comprehend them first. Once he's done, we ancestors will investigate him together." To avoid harming the innocent, the second ancestor did not interrupt Su Yu's comprehension. What if there was nothing wrong with him, but he was interrupted and unable to continue comprehending in the future? Second ancestor is considerate, the seventh ancestor said. Hence, the crowd watched quietly as Su Yu caught one fish after another. 5, 6, 7, 8, all the fish had been caught by Su Yu. Apart from the one that Ling Huyang had caught, which could not be caught again, Su Yu had successfully caught all the fish. Su Yu had already comprehended about 80 to 90% of the ancestral technique remnant that had been shattered. He was only missing the one that Ling Huyang had comprehended. Now, he could already casually draw out an incomparably profound and powerful remnant with a wave of his hand. Of course, Su Yu could not use it in front of the 6 ancestors of the Ling Hu Saint clan. He pretended to be dizzy and rubbed his forehead. "So the ancestors are all here. Junior Ling Huyang pays his respects to the ancestors." His mind was racing, trying to think of a way to escape the ancestors' investigation. At that time, the seventh ancestor had only scanned Su Yu's soul casually. This time, he had comprehended all the remnant traces of the ancestral arts of the soul sacred race. They would definitely carefully search through his soul. At that time, both Su Yu and Ling Huyang's soul memories would be investigated. The seventh forefather's face was filled with excitement as he said, "Yang congratulations. You are truly amazing." From ancient times until now, he was the first clansman to comprehend 8 ancestral arts in succession. Su Yu replied modestly, "Although I caught the fish, I didn't fully comprehend it. I still need many years to comprehend it." The seventh forefather was silent for a moment, then said, "Yang these are the forefathers of the clan, and they have some questions for you." Su Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he said hesitantly, "Seventh ancestor, can you allow me to go home first and inform Inger of this good news?" His expression was apologetic as he said, "Inger has endured humiliation for me for many years. I promised her that I would tell her the news as soon as possible." The seventh forefather, who had a deep understanding of this, said to the second forefather, "The investigation doesn't matter. How about giving him some time first?" Anyway, under the eyes of the 7 forefathers, even if there was something wrong with Ling Huyang, there was no way he could escape. "Sure, at most half a day." The second forefather nodded, then disappeared with the other forefathers. The 7th forefather cupped his fists and congratulated him. "After the investigation, I will perform a holy bath for you." Haha, when he finished, the 7th forefather also disappeared without a trace. Only the juniors were left standing on the ground, at a loss. Ling Huyang had comprehended 8 ancestral art. Without a doubt, he was the future successor of the soul sacred race. They were unwilling to accept this cruel reality, but it was right in front of them. Moreover, what they needed to worry about was whether Ling Huyang would seek revenge in the future. After all, they had all bullied Ling Huyang before. Su Yu straightened his clothes and walked out of the hall. He said calmly, "From now on, don't have any other thoughts. Otherwise, I don't mind making you disappear from this world." His words caused the hearts of many juniors of the same clan to tremble violently. A woman's face turned pale. He was just saying it. We are all his clansmen. How could he be so ruthless? Although many people were afraid, they did not take it to heart. This included Ling Hujie. He did not believe that Ling Huyang would dare to do anything to him. Usually, the conflicts were internal conflicts of the clan. If it escalated to a killing, the forefathers would not sit back and watch. Su Yu went straight back to his house. He glanced at the sky out of the corner of his eyes. He could faintly sense that someone was watching him. Therefore, he could not go to the secret chamber to exchange his soul right away. He could only do as he had said and be the first to letting know of his achievements. When he entered the house, Yan Feiying was making tea. When Su Yu returned, Yan Feiying raised her eyes and looked delighted. "You're back. How was your day?" she asked casually and did not have much expectation. "I got it." Su Yu smiled. In his heart, he was thinking about how to exchange bodies without arousing suspicion. Yan Feiying was overjoyed. She threw herself into his arms like a little bird, her face filled with surprise. It was as if she was the one who had comprehended the ancestral technique, not Su Yu. Feeling Yan Feiying's sincere happiness, Su Yu could not help but envy Ling Huyang. He had really married a good wife. "Tell me quickly, what ancestral technique did you comprehend?" Yan Feiying asked anxiously. Her face was flushed with surprise. From head to toe, every single hair on her body was filled with indescribable surprise. Su Yu smiled mysteriously. "It depends on which piece you're asking about." "What do you mean?" Yan Feiying was startled. Su Yu sat down with a smile. Leaning against the armchair, he said leisurely, "I caught all the ancestral technique fishes." "What?" Yan Feiying covered her small mouth, her starry eyes as wide as silver bells. "How is that possible?" Su Yu shrugged. How could it be false under the verification of the seventh ancestor and several other forefathers? He looked at her on behalf of Ling Huyang. From today onwards you will be proud of me." At this moment, Yan Feiying was shocked, and her heart was filled with warmth. She hugged Su Yu even tighter and sat on his lap, tears streaming down her face. She had been waiting for this day for a very, very long time. Finally, she had waited for this day. Su Yu smiled. His mission had come to an end. It was time to exchange his soul and continue on his journey. However, how could he go to the secret chamber and exchange his body without arousing suspicion? He knew how to exchange souls now. But the prerequisite was that there had to be physical contact between the two parties. Now that he was being watched by several forefathers, once he entered the secret chamber, they would probably notice that there was someone in the secret chamber and be exposed. He was pondering. Yan Feiying, who had been sobbing for a long time, wiped her tears and suddenly said, "Oh yes. Husband, do you remember the black-robed man who came to buy medicine last time?" Su Yu had a bad feeling in his heart. He said, "Of course I remember. What's wrong?" Yan Feiying pursed her lips slightly, feeling humiliated. "He was hiding in the secret chamber of our house. After I found him, he tried to molest me. He called me and said I was his wife, and he was Ling Huyang." Su Yu's face darkened. And then? His bad feeling was getting stronger. With Yan Feiying's loyal personality, whoever dared to insult her would have serious consequences. Chapter 30-38. Then, Yan Feiying said matter-of-factly. "Then I suppressed her in the latrine pit." "What?" Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, Su Yu jumped up immediately. "Suppressed in the latrine pit?" Yan Feiying said matter-of-factly, What are you surprised about? Isn't that what you said? Anyone who violated me was thrown into the latrine pit to be suppressed. The corners of Su Yu's mouth twitched. Only now did he recall that after Ling Hujie had attempted to violate Yan Feiying, Ling Huyang had sworn to suppress all those who had plotted against Yan Feiying in the latrine pit to reflect. Ling Huyang, you never dreamed that the first person to be suppressed in the latrine pit would be you, right? Su Yu was speechless. Yan Feiying said suspiciously, but it's really strange. How did that person know my name? Su Yu hurriedly interrupted her conjecture. Ahem, don't think about it now. Let him out. I want to interrogate him. Interrogate him for what? Wouldn't it be better to just suppress him to death? Yan Feiying asked, puzzled. Those stinky hooligans who tried to violate her deserved to be suppressed in the latrine pit for the rest of their lives. What if he has an accomplice? Su Yu asked in reply. Yan Feiying thought about it seriously for a moment, then said, You're right. Wait a moment. Before long, Yan Feiying threw a stinky man in a black robe on the ground. It's him. Su Yu pinched his nose and said, go get the torture tools. I'll interrogate him alone for a while. Yes, husband. Yan Feiying did not suspect anything and left obediently. Only Su Yu and Ling Huyang were left in the room. How does it feel to be suppressed in the latrine pit by your own wife? Su Yu asked calmly. Ling Huyang raised his head, his body stinking. He said, Why don't you have a taste? He said angrily, Have you used your body enough? Give it back to me. Su Yu could not have asked for more. With a wave of his hand, a space area swept across Ling Huyang's body, sweeping away all the filth and stench on his body, leaving nothing behind. Only such a body could he dare to take it back. Cut the crap. Let's begin. I've had enough of your body that's neither a man nor a woman. Ling Huyang stood up and stepped forward, placing his palm on Su Yu's shoulder. Just as he was about to use the soul exchange, Yan Feiying came back with many instruments of torture and said, Husband, why did you let him get up? You even washed him clean. Su Yu said in a deadpan manner, this person was caught by you and hit his head. He's a bit delirious, and he mistook himself for me. That's why he unknowingly offended you. Yan Feiying looked doubtful. Isn't this excuse too far-fetched? No matter how she looked at it, she couldn't tell that this fellow of unknown origin was delirious at that time. I've already examined his soul's memory, and it's indeed true. I've even cured him in passing. As Su Yu spoke, he shot a meaningful glance at Ling Huyang. The latter cupped his fists and said, My apologies, I was the one who offended you, but I didn't mean to offend you. I don't think a normal person would have the guts to be rude to the young madam of the Soul Saint tribe. Yan Feiying was skeptical. She felt that something was amiss, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Forget it, let him leave as soon as possible. I don't want to see him again, Yan Feiying said, displeased. Su Yu nodded. All right, drive him away right away. Ling Huyang, who was beside them, was already impatient. He shot a threatening glance at Su Yu as if to say, Why are you so dramatic? He closed his eyes and activated the soul exchange, preparing to quietly exchange their soul strengths. However, Su Yu suddenly paused, then said, By the way, I have to confess something to you. In fact, I really sold your undergarment to Wang San Matzi under the bridge. Of course, this was a lie. His purpose was to deceive Yan Feiying. What? Yan Feiying's face was flushed, and she was so angry that she stepped forward and slapped him. Su Yu laughed inwardly. He used the soul exchange, instantly exchanging souls with Ling Huyang, and returned to his own body. Slap. Ling Huyang had just returned to his own body when he was slapped. He hadn't even enjoyed his wife's tenderness when he was slapped. I didn't say that. Ling Huyang covered his red and swollen cheek, feeling wronged. Huang Inger said angrily, If it wasn't you, was it him? She wasn't deaf. Ling Huyang stammered, not daring to reveal the absurd matter of the soul exchange. He could only grit his teeth and glare at Su Yu. Su Yu returned the smile and mouthed, "An eye for an eye." Back then, he had wanted to use Su Yu as a shield to receive a slap from Yan Feiying. Now, he had returned the favor. Su Yu smiled and cupped his hands. "Sirs, I won't disturb you any longer. I'll take my leave now." Everything was going smoothly and he could leave safely. However, right at that moment a group of people came in from outside. They were Ling Hu Jie, Ling Hu Yun, and the other juniors. They had all come to congratulate him. "Big brother, we've come to congratulate you." They had brought delicious meat and top-notch spiritual fruit. Even Ling Hu Jie had prepared a bottle of fine wine from his collection. Seeing how enthusiastic they were, people who didn't know better would think that they had a harmonious relationship. Ling Hu Yang scowled and snorted. "What do you want them to congratulate me for? Get rid of them." Yan Feiying hid her anger and resumed her virtuous demeanor. She tidied his clothes and said, "You can't do that. As the big brother of this generation, you should have the bearing of a big brother. If you want to retaliate against them, you should wait for another time, not now." They had come to congratulate him openly. If Ling Hu Yang took action, he would seem too petty. In the end, Yan Feiying understood the ways of the world better. But what are they celebrating for? It's so strange. Ling Hu Yang's brows were still furrowed. Yan Feiying looked at Ling Hu Yang suspiciously. She said, "Since just now, I feel like you've changed into another person." In the past 3 days, Ling Hu Yang had given her a feeling of qualitative change. Whether it was his temperament or his behavior, he was like a different person. But today, he had suddenly changed back. "Oh, I just feel that there's nothing to celebrate." "That's nothing," Ling Hu Yang said ambiguously. Yan Feiying's suspicions didn't dissipate. Instead, they deepened. She said, "My husband, you caught 8 fish in a row. No one has ever comprehended most of the ancestral techniques in one go. Isn't that nothing?" She didn't remember her husband being so modest. "What? I comprehended." Ling Hu Yang was shocked. Just as he was about to give himself away, Su Yu placed his hand on his shoulder and immediately swapped souls. He quickly regained control of Ling Hu Yang's body and said, "That's nothing. It's just ancestral techniques. It won't be too late to celebrate after I've digested them." Yan Feiying's suspicions lessened a little. She said, "You never speak properly. You're so muddle-headed. I really don't understand how you got 8 ancestral technique fragments." Ling Hu Yang, who was behind her, was shocked beyond belief. Putting aside the fact that Su Yu was proficient in soul swapping, what was up with the ancestral technique of 8 souls? Chapter 30-39. He stared at Su Yu anxiously, unable to accept the fact that an outsider like Su Yu had obtained all the ancestral technique fragments of the Soul Saint clan. How could he do that? As for agreeing to let Su Yu comprehend the ancestral technique in the first place, that was based on the premise that Su Yu had no chance of comprehending any ancestral technique. But who would have thought that Su Yu would not only comprehend it, but he would also comprehend all of the ancestral techniques? His mind was in turmoil, so much so that he didn't even notice Su Yu's telepathic message asking him to switch back to his body. Su Yu furrowed his brows. He had no choice but to take a step forward. He was prepared to make physical contact and switch back to his original body. But who knew that Yan Feiying would pull him back and say, "Since the clansmen are here, then what are you waiting for? Go out and pretend to be courteous with them." Feeling helpless, Su Yu pointed at Hu Yang and asked, "What about him?" Yan Feiying took it for granted and said, "Of course I'm going to chase him away. I can't possibly keep him in my house, can I?" Su Yu obviously couldn't let Ling Hu Yang take his body away, so he said hurriedly, "Since he's already here, let him attend the gathering together with us." Yan Feiying was extremely suspicious. Her eyes darted back and forth between the two of them. "You two know each other? Or are you hiding something from me?" Only then did Ling Hu Yang finally come to his senses. He hastily said, "No, no. Su Yu said casually, "It's fate that we met, so let's have some fun together." This inexplicable way of doing things was more in line with Ling Hu Yang's identity, and it dispelled much of Yan Feiying's suspicions. She stomped her feet. "Forget it. I don't care what's going on between you two." As he spoke, he opened his eyes and looked unkindly at the group of people who had mocked them and even bullied them in the past. "If you have anything to say, say it in the yard. It's crowded inside," Yan Feiying said lightly. Although the clansmen were embarrassed, they couldn't do anything. Ling Hu Yang wasn't the same as before. They couldn't bully him at will anymore. So, they had no choice but to find a place to sit down in the courtyard. Su Yu and Ling Hu Yang also came out of the house. Ling Hu Jie, Ling Hu Yun, and the others immediately stood up and congratulated him with smiles on their faces. "Congratulations, big brother, for grasping all of the ancestral techniques. Congratulations, congratulations. Big brother is going to achieve great things." These words weren't false. He grasped all of the soul ancestral methods. Once he completely digested them, just how much would his strength increase? In particular, the strength of Big Brother's soul was much stronger than that of ordinary people. In this way, the power of the ancestral soul technique would multiply. As a result, Ling Hu Jie was persuaded by his parents to come over unwillingly to congratulate them in an attempt to mend their relationship. Su Yu revealed a faint smile and said, "Everyone, please take a seat." He really had nothing to talk about with this group of people. He just wanted to end this boring gathering as soon as possible. Everyone sat around the stone table. Su Yu waved his hand casually, and countless spiritual fruits appeared. He chatted with everyone while eating. "Thank you, everyone, for thinking so highly of me. I will continue to work hard in the future to bring glory to our Saint clan." He said these meaningless words, hoping that the gathering would end soon so that he could find a chance to change his body and leave the Sacred Soul tribe. They could all tell that Su Yu had no desire to chat with them. Ling Hu Jie poked Ling Hu Yun's shoulder and said, "This gathering was initiated by third brother. Why don't you say a few words?" Among them, only Ling Hu Yun and Ling Hu Yang had a decent relationship. Moreover, this gathering was indeed initiated by Ling Hu Yun himself. Ling Hu Yun smiled warmly and said, "Big brother, congratulations on obtaining all of the ancestral techniques. I believe that you will be qualified to train in the Heavenly Law prison soon." Su Yu finally heard something that interested him, and he said, "I heard that the Heavenly Law prison is very dangerous, isn't it?" Ling Hu Yun seemed to have a deep understanding of the Heavenly Law prison. He said, "There is no more danger now." Now? Su Yu understood what he was implying, and he asked, "Is it very dangerous right now?" Many juniors were curious about the Heavenly Law prison. Although it was in the Son of Heaven's cave, it wasn't too far away from the Soul Sacred clan. But they had never been there. He had only heard many legends about the Heavenly Law prison. Ling Hu Yun looked around at everyone and said, "Just listen to what I've said. Don't spread it out. I've only obtained this information from somewhere by chance." After pausing for a moment, Ling Hu Yun said with a grave expression, "More than 10 years ago, there was a rebellion in the Heavenly Law prison. Some of the prisoners imprisoned there actually managed to escape." "What?" Ling Hu Jie's face turned pale. "Really? The prisoners imprisoned there are said to be extremely dangerous beings. Any one of them has the power to destroy the world, and their strength is no less than that of a great saint." Ling Hu Yun nodded affirmatively. "It should be true. It is said that after the incident, all the guards inside were killed, and all the saint clans in the vicinity were wiped out overnight. In an emergency situation, Prince Xiaoyao came in person to quell the chaos. He spoke in a systematic manner, causing everyone to believe him without a doubt. But why haven't we heard about it before?" Ling Hu Jie furrowed his brows. The Soul Sacred clan wasn't far from the Heavenly Law prison. How could they not know about such a huge commotion? Ling Hu Yun pointed to the sky and said in a serious voice, Of course it's the domain that Prince Xiaoyao is best at, souls. After the great battle, he changed the memories of all the people nearby, so that they couldn't remember what had happened. He even made them think that the Soul Sacred Clan, which was destroyed, didn't exist many years ago. The juniors sucked in a breath of cold air. Indeed, only the Xiaoyao Son of Heaven could hide such a huge thing without anyone knowing. After all, he was the son of the Holy Mountain, who had unimaginable power. Even Yan Feiying listened attentively. She believed him without a doubt. What about in the Heavenly Law prison? What's the situation now? Su Yu asked. Ling Huiyun said, I heard that all the prisoners have been re-imprisoned. There is no more danger in there, as long as you don't touch those cages. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The Heavenly Law prison was a ticking time bomb. All the people imprisoned there were powerhouses that the world couldn't destroy. They couldn't be killed one by one, so they could only be imprisoned forever. Ling Huiyun smiled and said, Big brother, if you have the chance to go in, you must train well. I heard that there are many holy places for training in there. As soon as he said that, the juniors were envious. They had only heard about how dangerous the Heavenly Law prison was, but they had never heard of any holy places for training in there. Really? Why haven't I heard of any holy places for training? Ling Hujie questioned. Ling Huiyun shared what he had learned generously. He said, It's normal that you haven't heard of them, because these are secrets. Many people who enter the Heavenly Law prison don't know about them. Chapter 30-40. He looked around and said in a low voice, You may not know this, but in some of the empty cages there may be 1,000-year-old giants who have been worn away by time. Although they are dead, their power has been preserved because of the special environment and has not dissipated. If you can absorb that power, imagine the improvement of your cultivation. The juniors were all tempted. Those were all extremely dangerous existences. Their cultivation was unparalleled. Even a little bit of it was enough for the juniors' cultivation to soar. Many of the juniors looked at Su Yu. Big brother, if you go in, won't your strength increase again? Ling Hujie was extremely jealous. Ling Huyang was already extremely powerful. If his strength increased again, wouldn't he be even more powerful? Why can't we go in? Ling Hujie asked. Ling Huiyun shook his head. We are too weak. If we go in, our minds will be easily affected by the majesty of the Heavenly Law. We might even turn into lunatic. So serious? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. He could even become a lunatic? Isn't that too dangerous? Among us, only Big Brother can go in. The rest of us will die, Ling Huiyun said gravely. Everyone had complicated expressions. Ling Huiyun comforted them. But don't worry. When our cultivation increases, we can all go in. Everyone comforted themselves. With their identity and status, as long as there were no accidents, they would indeed have the opportunity to enter. As the juniors were chatting happily, Su Yu suddenly frowned and looked up at the sky. Yan Feiying, who was beside him, noticed his abnormality and asked, What's wrong, husband? Su Yu was puzzled. Have you noticed that something seems to be shielding us from the surroundings? In fact, when they came to congratulate him, Su Yu had already noticed it. It seemed like the gazes of the ancestors who were probing him were fainter and fainter. He had thought that the ancestors had let down their guard against him, but since then, they had stopped looking at him. Su Yu could not help but feel suspicious. No way. How could the ancestors trust Su Yu so much that they would give up on basic surveillance? Intuition told Su Yu that there must be something wrong. The rest of the juniors were stunned. Big brother, you must have sensed it wrong. We are in the Soul Saint clan. How could anyone block us? Besides, the ancestors are all here. No one can do this under their noses. Su Yu stood up with a grave look on his face. He took out a communication device and casually sent a signal to the outside world. But in the end, the signal that was sent out was reflected back. Those juniors also sensed that something was wrong. They all took out their communication devices and sent messages to their relative. However, without exception, none of the messages could be sent out. Who did it? A female junior walked up to the barrier and tried to figure out the range of the barrier. After walking 100 steps, just outside the house, he finally touched a layer of faintly discernible invisible barrier, and a layer of ripples spread out. There really is an isolation barrier. We've been blocked by someone, the woman exclaimed. Everyone had a bad premonition. Why would someone suddenly set up a barrier in the sacred soul race? Leave the barrier first. Suyu felt that something was amiss and reminded them. The woman nodded and hurriedly left the barrier. But just as he was about to leave, something strange happened. Outside the barrier, a blood-red ghostly hand pierced through the barrier without any warning and pierced through the woman's chest, crushing her heart. Ah! Everyone screamed and immediately called out, "10th sister, quickly leave your body." The woman recovered from her panic and immediately abandoned her body, her soul rushing out of it. However, before she could escape, the ghostly hand released a blood-red light. The blood-red light had an unparalleled lethality against soul power. Once it was released, the woman's soul was completely destroyed. 10th sister. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. This scene reminded them of the time when the 9 Deaths giant demon broke into the sacred soul race and slaughtered many juniors of the race. Creak! The barrier shook violently, and an 8-foot-tall creature with wings on its back and 2 mouths but no eyes walked in with a sneer. Ling Hu Yun's pupils shrank and he gasped. The extinct ancient fierce race, the sky-devouring clan. In the early years of the 9-star civilization, there were many fierce races, but they became extinct over the years. The sky-devouring clan in front of them was one of them. However, why did the sky-devouring clan still survive? Why did it suddenly come to the sacred soul race? Moreover, how could it avoid the ancestral patriarch's eyes and come here quietly? Countless questions lingered in everyone's minds. However, they didn't have time to wonder. Quick! Defend! Some of you break the barrier. As soon as the ancestral patriarchs notice, they will come immediately. Ling Hu Yun wasn't flustered in the face of danger. He took out his doctrine artifact and attacked the enemy. The rest of the younger generation reacted one after another, each displaying their own abilities to attack the enemy. Domains, Dao artifacts, talismans, and so on. They used all the trump cards they could use. However, it didn't have much effect. The blood-red sky-devouring clan member's body was so strong that it could be compared to a great saint. Their attacks landed on the sky-devouring clan member's body, but it was like scratching an itch. At the same time, some of them attacked the barrier, trying to break it. However, the barrier was unexpectedly strong, and they couldn't break it in a short time. The sky-devouring clan member laughed coldly. "Don't struggle. Just become my food. I've been hungry for a long time." Then, it turned into a beam of blood-red light and pounced. Seeing this, the juniors didn't have the will to fight anymore. They retreated frantically. This scene was similar to the 9 Death giant demons' return in the past. It was the same sudden attack, the same incomparably cruel massacre, and the same defenseless escape. But this time, would they be able to escape? Among all of them, Suyu was probably the calmest. He was still sitting at the stone table, and he didn't even put down the wine glass in his hand. Yan Feiying's soft body trembled. She pulled Suyu's wrist and said, "Husband, husband, go." However, Suyu was as steady as a mountain, and she couldn't move him. Suyu looked at the sky-devouring clan member calmly and said, "You can kill anyone you want, but don't touch me and the 2 people next to me." In the face of crisis, he just wanted to protect himself and Yan Feiying. As for those people, as they had said, it was the ancestral patriarchs who saved them, not him. Since that was the case, why should he make a move? However, the sky-devouring clan member didn't listen to him at all. With a whistling sound, he pounced on Suyu and the other 2 people. Suyu didn't move. He simply raised his finger and tapped it lightly in the air. Roar! The tyrannical sky-devouring clan member suddenly let out a painful roar. Then, he lay on the ground and kept rolling. Updated at night. Chapter 3041. A soul fragment flew out of the sky-devouring clan member's forehead and floated in the air. What looked like a casual finger was actually an incomparably profound soul ancestral technique. Although it had not been fully cultivated, its power could not be underestimated. It was much stronger than an ordinary ancestral technique. Roaring, the sky-devouring clan member hurriedly retreated. His blood-red eyes stared at Suyu in horror, not daring to act recklessly anymore. Its blood-red eyes turned to look at the rest of the clan members, and then at Suyu. Seeing that Suyu had no intention of stopping it, it roared and pounced on them. For a moment, the juniors screamed and begged for help. Ling Hu-yang, drive him away. Hurry up. How can you let the sky-devouring clan kill us? You have the ability to drive him away. Amidst the screams were the hoarse shouts and complaints of the juniors. It was as if Su Yu should have saved them. Su Yu's expression was cold. Even now, they still thought it was natural. Dogs can't stop eating **t. It was conceivable that if Su Yu saved them now, they would not be grateful. They would only think it was natural that Su Yu saved them. Just as Ling Hu-yang had risked being killed by the nine-death giant demon to fight for a chance of survival for his people. However, what he got was not gratitude. Instead, he was mercilessly trampled on and humiliated. As for the so-called life-saving grace, there was no such thing. It was the ancestor who saved them. Let the ancestor save you. My ability is limited. I can't save you. Suyu raised his glass and took a sip. Ling Hu-yang, who was at the side, became anxious. Those were all his clansmen. No matter how wrong they were, he couldn't just let them die a miserable death. Your Excellency. Ling Hu-yang, please save them quickly, Ling Hu-yang begged. Those were the remaining juniors of the Sacred Souls clan. If anything were to happen to them, the Sacred Souls clan would be wiped out from the rest of their generation. Yan Feiying was also worried. When did her husband become so cold-blooded? How could he sit back and watch his people die? Suyu did not move. He said calmly, all of you sit down. Don't be soft-hearted. Why did Ling Hu-jie and the others dare to take advantage of him? Why did they dare to be ungrateful? Didn't they think Ling Hu-yang and his wife were kind? In this world, the easiest thing to be trampled on is kindness. If the person who had saved them had been a ruthless and ferocious person like Suyu, would they still have dared to be so heartless? They would only remember the kindness in their hearts. Since Suyu had taken over Ling Hu-yang's body, he decided to help him to the end and sort out his relationship with his clansmen. The accusations and complaints of his younger siblings gradually turned into pleading or silence. Among them, the women were the ones begging, while the men gritted their teeth and refused to utter a single word, beg. It was as if doing so would lower her status and taste, and she would lower her head to Ling Hu-yang. However, they were also deeply anticipating and instigating their sisters to open their mouths and cry for help so that Suyu could come and save them. However, it was a pity that Suyu was still indifferent and had no intention of attacking. Ling Hu-yun and Ling Hu-jie looked at each other and asked worriedly, Hey, Ling Hu-yang can't possibly be planning to watch with folded arms, right? Ling Hu-jie stared at Suyu's back as if he could see through him. He then shook his head and said, Don't worry, I won't. I don't know what kind of person he is. He's just trying to scare us so that we'll lower our heads and admit our mistakes. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a woman let out a shrill scream. The sky-devouring clan had pounced on another woman and bitten off her head. All of a sudden, blood splattered all over the faces of the other clansmen, causing them to scream continuously. However, Suyu still had no intention of attacking. He just watched silently. Ling Hu-jie's face turned pale, and he looked at Suyu in disbelief. He's really not attacking? This time, Ling Hu-jie was really panicking. At that moment, A second woman's scream rang out. Ling Hujie was completely flustered, and he shouted for help. Big brother, please save me, please save us. Ling Huyun also hurriedly pleaded. Big brother, please save us once for the sake of our brothers. Don't let our younger sisters continue to get hurt. The rest of the people begged one after another, their words extremely sincere. Only then did Su Yu finally turn around and say calmly, I can save you, but I want to know first who saved you in your hearts. Is it me, or is it the old ancestor in your hearts? It's you, big brother. I will always remember your life-saving grace. I was wrong, big brother, please save me, I won't dare to do it again. After listening to them, Su Yu said calmly, Remember what you said? All of you owe me your lives. After saying that, he snapped his fingers. The sky-devouring clan member, who was eating people, screamed and rolled on the ground. His soul fluorescence was constantly drifting out of his body. Seeing that it was impossible to save him, he struggled to escape from the barrier and disappeared without a trace. Su Yu didn't chase after him. He didn't even look at the sky-devouring clan member. He went to the two victims. He extracted a trace of soul energy from each of them, which had not yet dissipated. Then, his left and right hands turned into a piece of jade light. In the blink of an eye, the trace of soul energy was copied into a complete soul. The two women, who had clearly been destroyed in both body and soul, appeared with their souls intact. This godly mastery of the soul caused them to gasp in amazement. Ling Huyun was even more shocked. Is this the lost unique skill of our ancestors, soul duplication? Su Yu looked at him and nodded slightly. Sort of. As he said that, Su Yu grabbed the bodies of the two and repaired them with the power of the heavenly law. Then, he inserted their souls into them. Just like that, the two of them were resurrected. Su Yu looked at the women who had been destroyed in front of the barrier and shook his head. Unfortunately, they can't be saved. Their souls had long been destroyed by the blood light of the sky-devouring clan. It was impossible to duplicate them again. Therefore, the juniors were completely relieved and sat down with lingering fear. Break the barrier and ask the ancestors for help as soon as possible, Ling Hujie said cautiously. Without the protection of the ancestors, he couldn't feel at ease. What if the sky-devouring clan member came back again? Would he have to beg Su Yu again then? The feeling of bowing to Ling Huyang and begging for mercy was too uncomfortable. Everyone agreed and joined forces to attack the barrier from a distance. This time, without the pursuit of the sky-devouring clan, they could work together peacefully. The effect was much more obvious. After a few attacks, a crack appeared on the barrier. Ling Hujie was surprised. The barrier was much weaker than he had imagined. Why couldn't they even shake it when so many people joined forces just now? Crack. Then, more and more cracks appeared. It didn't take much effort at all before the barrier was completely broken. Although Ling Hujie didn't understand, it was a good thing that the barrier was broken. Chapter 3042. Crash. As the barrier shattered, they found that the seventh ancestor was already outside the barrier, trying his best to shatter it. Ling Hujie suddenly realized that it was the seventh ancestor. No wonder the barrier had shattered so easily when they attacked from the inside. Ling Hujie was completely relieved to see the seventh ancestor. He said, "Thank you for saving us, ancestor. If you hadn't come in time, we would all have died." In his mind, it was the ancestor who had saved him, not Ling Huyang. The seventh ancestor was startled. "I didn't save you. What happened inside? I thought it was a barrier that you formed during your gathering." It turned out that the seventh ancestor had no idea what had happened inside. However, Ling Hujie still insisted. "Seventh ancestor, it was because of your arrival that the sky-devouring clan retreated. Otherwise, we would all be in danger." He had repeatedly thanked the seventh ancestor because he wanted to get rid of Ling Huyang's life-saving grace. Yes, he did not want to admit that he owed Su Yu his life. The rest of the juniors were silent for a while, then cupped their fists to Su Yu. We will remember your life-saving grace. If you need our help in the future, please let us know. They could not be thick-skinned enough to deny that they had begged Su Yu to save them. In contrast, Ling Hujie's effort to thank the seventh ancestor, who had not even helped them, seemed extremely ridiculous. Ling Hujie also felt uncomfortable. He said to the crowd, "All of you, come here and thank the seventh ancestor. It was the seventh ancestor who saved us." Yan Feiying saw this and finally understood the reason why her husband had not helped them. There would always be some people who enjoyed their help with peace of mind, but at the same time looked down on those who had helped them. "Ling Hujie, you were one of the people who begged my husband to help, weren't you?" Yan Feiying said coldly. Ling Hujie said disapprovingly, "Even without your husband, the sky-devouring clan would have sensed the seventh ancestor's arrival and fled in panic. I didn't need his help at all." "Shameless," Yan Feiying said through gritted teeth. She did not care whether Ling Hujie was grateful or not, but the way he denied her husband's help was really irritating. When there was danger, he wagged his tail and begged like a dog, but when there was safety, he was fierce. Ling Hujie let out a strange cackle, and from the corner of his eye, he glanced at Yan Feiying's round chest, causing her to quickly cover her chest. She gritted her teeth in hatred, but there was nothing she could do. Now that they were safe, Ling Hujie could do whatever he wanted. No one could do anything to him. Ling Hujie liked to see Yan Feiying hate him but couldn't do anything to him. It was just like how she didn't dare to say anything when he almost took her. "Haha, big brother, next time before you save someone you have to make sure to record it properly. Otherwise I won't recognize it," Ling Hujie said proudly. He could imagine that Ling Huyang must be bursting with anger right now, right? It wasn't easy for him to save his second brother, but the other party refused to admit it. However, Su Yu's expression was extremely calm, and a white light flickered in his eyes. "As you wish." A pale expression flashed across his eyes. Everyone felt a piercing pain all over their bodies, and then their eyes became relaxed, as if something covering their eyes had been removed. When they looked at their surroundings, they all gathered together in panic. They were shocked to find that the so-called seventh ancestor and the so-called outside world had all disappeared. What came into sight was the barrier. They didn't break the barrier at all, and they didn't see the seventh ancestor. Everything was an illusion cast by Ling Huyang, which made them think that they had left the barrier. Yan Feiying was stunned for a while before she finally understood what her husband meant. He was deliberately creating a false impression that they had escaped. He wanted to see who would immediately turn against him, and who still had a little conscience. As it turned out, Ling Hujie was shameless and shameless. Ling Hujie was stunned, and then he was burning with anger. "Ling Huyang, what do you mean? Do you think you can toy with us just because you have mastered the ancestral soul technique?" He didn't like the feeling of being toyed with like this. He really didn't like it. Su Yu said calmly, "I think you should worry about your own safety first." As if in response to Su Yu's words, the barrier not far from Ling Hujie fluctuated again. It was the sky-devouring clan that had returned. No, it wasn't the one just now. It was another one. Ling Hujie was right next to the barrier, and he was defenseless. The result was obvious. The sky-devouring clan reached out its ghostly claws, grabbed Ling Hujie, and dragged him out. In an instant, Ling Hujie was so scared that his face turned pale. He screamed in horror, "Help me, everyone, help me!" But they couldn't even protect themselves, so who would dare to save Ling Hujie? Everyone was indifferent. At that moment, half of Ling Hujie's body had been pulled out of the barrier. His face was full of unprecedented fear, and he shouted in horror, "Big brother, help me, I was really wrong, please help me." This time, Ling Hujie was really asking for help. But would he go back to his old ways after he was safe? The answer was yes. The scene just now had explained everything. Su Yu sat down calmly and said calmly, "Beg the ancestors. Maybe they can scare the sky-devouring clan away." After saying that, He raised his cup and drank, turning a deaf ear to Ling Hujie's cry for help. No matter how much Ling Hujie struggled, begged for help, and admitted his mistakes, Su Yu was indifferent. Even the soft-hearted Yan Feiying closed her eyes, showing no intention of interceding. Suddenly, Ling Hujie let out a blood-curdling screech. The half of his body stopped struggling and fell from the barrier. But there was no life in his eyes, and they were pale. Only then did people realize that Ling Hujie only had half of his body left. The other half had been eaten by the sky-devouring clan. Su Yu was expressionless, and he said, "Surround me and wait for the ancestors to come and save you." He had seen the barrier long ago, and it was not something they could open unless Su Yu used a sharp weapon like the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations. But he didn't want to expose such a great weapon in front of the Soul Saint clan. As long as they gathered together like this, with Su Yu's soul attainments, no one could hurt them. Then, they just had to wait for the ancestors to come. But some people were unwilling. "Big brother, is this really okay?" Ling Hu Yun expressed his concern. "The sky-devouring clan in front of us is completely different from the one just now. What if several of them appear at the same time?" His words were reasonable, and they immediately caused panic among the people. One of them said, "We'd better find a way to open the barrier and inform the ancestors as soon as possible." Su Yu said calmly, "Are you sure it will be the ancestors who appear after opening the barrier, and not something else?" Everyone was confused, and they didn't understand what Su Yu meant. Outside the barrier was, of course, the Soul Saint clan's mansion. As soon as they appeared, they could inform the people that they were in danger, and the ancestors would notice their abnormality and rush over immediately. Chapter 3043. Ling Hu Yun looked anxious as he said, "Big brother, let me go first. We can't just sit here and wait for death." He volunteered to attack the barrier. An ancient saint-level power of the heavenly law master swirled in his palm, and he slammed it hard on the barrier. All of a sudden, the barrier rippled, showing signs of breaking. Seeing this, the rest of the people gathered their courage and prepared to help Ling Hu Yun open the barrier. However, just as they were about to take action, Su Yu suddenly drew a line with his finger. A vague remnant of the ancestral soul technique flew over and imprinted itself on Ling Hu Yun's back. Sizzle! In an instant, a large amount of green smoke rose from Ling Hu Yun's body. He rolled on the ground in pain, extinguishing the smoke on his back. He turned his head and said in shock, "Big brother? Why did you attack me?" His sisters were also dumbfounded. They had never expected this. They had a very harmonious relationship, and Ling Hu Yun had spoken up for Ling Hu Yang many times when he was in trouble. Ling Hu Yun was seeking a way out for everyone, but Su Yu attacked him from behind and injured him on purpose. Wasn't this too much? Even Su Yu could not stand it anymore. He pressed down on Su Yu's shoulder and yelled, "Are you crazy?" Yan Feiying covered her mouth in shock. She could not believe that her husband would hurt Ling Hu Yun. Ling Hu Yun had helped them so much over the years. How could he hurt him? Su Yu's eyes were deep, like two cold, clear springs in the abyss. "Ling Hu Yun, there's something I've always wanted to ask you," Su Yu said calmly. Ling Hu Yun, who was healing his injured body with his strength, said unhappily, "Ask away. I won't tell the ancestors about what happened today." Su Yu stood up slowly and said, "I want to ask, have you lived in peace all these years?" Ling Hu Yun frowned. "What do you mean?" Su Yu stared at him and said calmly, "I mean, after killing so many people, why did you act as if nothing happened?" "What?" Everyone was shocked. Yan Feiying tugged at his sleeves and said angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about? What's the relationship between the 9 death giant demons and Ling Hu Yun?" She thought that Ling Hu Yang was confused again. Su Yu shook her off and said expressionlessly, "Initially, I didn't want to meddle in your business, but since you have attacked me again and again, I can't forgive you." Not only were the others confused, but Ling Hu Yun was also confused. "Big brother, what are you talking about? Do you need me to be more explicit? In the past, during the 9 Deaths Giant Demons massacre, countless juniors were killed, and I was severely injured, while my talent was crippled. It was all thanks to you. Su Yu's gaze was sharp. Ling Hu Yun was taken aback for a good while. Then, he laughed self-deprecatingly. Big brother, are you saying that I am the main culprit who harmed you? This guess is really too ridiculous. Many of the younger sisters were of the same opinion. No matter what, it was unlikely that it was Ling Hu Yun. Su Yu replied calmly, is it ridiculous? Not at all. He gently waved his hand, and a screen of light appeared in front of him. On it were the names of the current generation's juniors. This is everyone's talent ranking from 10 years ago, Su Yu said. At that time, the Soul Sacred Tribe had more than 20 juniors. According to the ranking of their talents, Ling Hu Yang was at the top, followed by Ling Hu Jie, and then many younger brothers and sisters. As for Ling Hu Jie's name, it was ranked last. Take a look at the current ranking. Su Yu waved his hand again. Half of the younger brothers and sisters who were at the top of the list were gone, leaving only 10. Ling Hu Jie's name jumped from the last to the second place, right after Ling Hu Jie. Only one person benefited from the massacre. Su Yu juxtaposed the two pictures together. As he compared them, a name with a huge difference came into view. That person was Ling Hu Yun. Everything in the world had its own traces. The 9 Deaths Giant Demon, who had appeared out of nowhere, had killed many of his peers and severely injured Ling Hu Yang. Now, right under the eyes of the ancestors, the sky-devouring clan had suddenly appeared and tried to kill them. There weren't many coincidences in the world. Back then, the 9 Deaths Giant Demon's sudden appearance might have been due to the carelessness of the ancestors. But today, under the watchful eyes of the ancestors, someone was able to conceal the house and coincidentally appear at the sky-devouring clan. Was this still a coincidence? No, it was just that one of them could control these ferocious people. Ling Hu Yun shook his head in self-mockery. I didn't expect you to suspect me. I've always respected you. Su Yu mercilessly exposed his disguise. Because you respected me, you only allowed the 9 Deaths Giant Demon to cripple me, but didn't kill me. He had always wondered why the 9 Deaths Giant Demon could kill a group of juniors so easily. When he faced Ling Hu Yang, he couldn't even kill him with one strike. There was only one answer. The 9 Deaths Giant Demon had been merciful. Someone who didn't want Ling Hu Yang to die had secretly manipulated the 9 Deaths Giant Demon. Big brother, these are all baseless guesses of yours. Ling Hu Yun's face was full of sincerity. Please don't trample on my respect for you like this, okay? Okay. Su Yu rubbed his eyes with his palm. A pale color swept across the surroundings, causing everyone's eyes to turn pale. This was the secret technique of his transparent eye that he shared with everyone present, so that they could temporarily have the ability to scan the whole place. As a result, the moment the transparent eye was activated, it caused a commotion. All of the people near the barrier ran to the center in fear, then gathered around Su Yu. In their eyes, there were hundreds of sky-devouring clan members crowding outside the barrier. They were scrambling to get into the barrier. However, because of the barrier's two-sided isolation, they couldn't break in. Su Yu said, every time the barrier is attacked from the inside, a sky-devouring clan member will run in. The sky-devouring clan had invaded twice because someone had touched the barrier and attracted a sky-devouring clan member inside. The first time, it was the woman who had been careless and attacked the barrier without permission. The second time, it was Ling Hu Yun who had secretly touched the barrier, attracting the sky-devouring clan member inside and capturing Ling Hu Jie. I want to know, Ling Hu Yun, why did you insist on breaking the barrier without waiting for the ancestors to come to the rescue? Su Yu asked, getting to the point. Ling Hu Yun's expression stiffened a little, and he said, I didn't know there were so many sky-devouring clan members outside. I only did it for the sake of everyone. Su Yu smiled faintly. Is that so? Then. He slapped his palm across the air towards Ling Huyun, who tilted his head slightly and dodged it. The remaining power of the palm fell on the barrier and set off a wave of ripples. As expected, after the ripples appeared, a sky-devouring clan member took the opportunity to sneak in. It appeared behind Ling Huyun but didn't attack him. Instead, it passed him and directly attacked Su Yu and the others. Su Yu raised his finger and pointed it casually, causing the soul of the sky-devouring clan member to crack, and he lay on the ground in agony. He looked at Ling Huyun's increasingly stiff face and said calmly, "Do you have anything else to say?" The sky-devouring clan ignored him and didn't hurt him at all, which was enough to explain everything. Updated at night. Chapter 3044. The clansmen behind him gasped in shock. Even a fool would understand that Ling Huyun was the mastermind behind all of this. Ling Huyun's face froze for a long time. His voice became gloomy, and his usually calm eyes became extremely fierce. There was a deep sharpness in his fierce eyes. "If I had known this would happen, I would have killed you with a single palm strike." Ling Huyun's tone was full of regret and viciousness. Su Yu shook his head with a cold smile. "Don't make yourself out to be so kind. You spared my life only to conceal your sudden rise and reduce the ancestors' suspicions of you. If even Ling Huyang had died, who would have been the most conspicuous person in the future? Ling Huyun, of course. At that time, the ancestors would inevitably pay attention to Ling Huyun and become suspicious of him. However, if Ling Huyang were still alive, the ancestors would have more hope in him and would not pay so much attention to Ling Huyun. This was also why no one had suspected Ling Huyun until now. No one had even realized that Ling Huyun was the only person who had benefited from the tragedy. Therefore, he had not been merciful at all. He had deliberately injured Ling Huyang until he became a cripple. His scheming was far more profound than his peers. "Ha ha!" Ling Huyun looked straight at Su Yu. Ling Huyang, I really admire you. It turns out that you have understood everything that happened back then. However, you have been playing the fool all these years and deceiving me. It was only recently that you suddenly erupted with a powerful soul that has been cultivated for a long time, and you have cultivated all the ancestral soul techniques in one go. Ling Huyun felt a sense of defeat. To be honest, I admire you so much. Upon hearing this, the real Ling Huyang blushed. He really did not know anything. It was Su Yu who had seen through everything. That's right. It was me. Ling Huyun's face was filled with a morbid, cruel air. As a fellow member of the Sacred Soul Clan, why should I be bullied by you? I swore a long time ago that I would crush each and every one of you to death and make you pay for what you did back then. Su Yu was silent. From Ling Huyang's experience, Su Yu could understand that Ling Huyun's soul and body had been damaged. Especially when the damage had occurred in his childhood, it had caused a huge distortion in his soul, which had led to Ling Huyun's morbid character. Especially you, Ling Huyang. Ling Huyun roared in accusation. Su Yu raised his brows and sneered coldly. Are you saying that I, who took care of you the most, has become the person you hate the most? He had thought that the person he hated the most would be Ling Hujie, who bullied him the most. He didn't expect it to be Ling Huyang. It was really unexpected. Take care of? Ling Huyun faced the sky and laughed heartily. Every time you take care of me, it's like a thorn stabbing into my heart. You are so dazzling and I am so lowly. Every time you get close to me, I feel as if my heart is being cut by a knife. Yet, I have to face you with a smile, as if I am being taken care of. Do you know how much pain I feel in my heart? Su Yu was expressionless, and the sympathy he had for him gradually dissipated. A person who couldn't even tell good from bad was no longer pitiful, but detestable. However, the thing that grieves my heart the most is that you've taken away the woman I love the most. Did you know that? Ling Huyun stared at Yan Feiying. Back then, I was the first to get to know Yan Feiying. However, because of your outstanding talents and because you were the most valued, I stole her away from you." Both Yan Feiying and Ling Huyang were shocked. Yan Feiying had indeed known Ling Huyun for a long time. However, they had only met through a few martial arts exchanges. They had never contacted each other in private, and they couldn't even be considered friends. How could he steal her away from her? What shocked Ling Huyang the most was that Ling Huyun had always been thinking about his wife. Su Yu suddenly realized why Ling Huyun had stepped forward to stop Ling Hujie when he had insulted Yan Feiying in the ancestral hall. It turned out that he really had unspeakable feelings for Yan Feiying. At that time, Ling Hujie had said that Ling Huyun also coveted Yan Feiying. Everyone had thought that it was just Ling Hujie's malicious slander. Who knew that it was actually true? Ling Huyang, wouldn't it have been better if you had continued to be a piece of trash? Ling Huyun said painfully. Give me time, let me grow up slowly, replace you, and then you die. Wouldn't that have been better? At that time, not only would he be able to become the most dazzling junior in the clan without arousing suspicion, but he would also have a legitimate reason to pursue Yan Feiying after Ling Huyang's death. But why did your talent suddenly return? Why? Ling Huyun roared hysterically. His face was twisted and morbid. It was because of this discovery that Ling Huyun finally took the risk to get rid of Su Yu once again. The real target of the Sky-Devouring clan's attack this time was actually Su Yu. As for the woman who had been sacrificed, Ling Huyun had deliberately killed her and dragged her to be buried with him in order to mislead the public. Even without me, do you really think you could have become the most dazzling among the juniors? Su Yu's eyes were cold. Have you ever thought about why the fish suddenly left the hook when you were fishing for the third fish? It's because I sensed the evil hidden in your heart and discovered your disloyalty and threat to the Soul Saint clan. That's why I rejected you, Su Yu said. No matter how many times you try in the future, you won't be able to obtain more soul ancestral technique. Regardless of whether Ling Huyang had risen or not, Ling Huyun's plan would fail. No, it's not like that. Without you, I would have become the most powerful person in the Soul Saint clan. Ling Huyun would never admit this. He stared at Su Yu and said, "Since you and the others already know, there's no need for me to keep you alive anymore." As he spoke, he bent his fingers and tapped on the barrier. Suddenly, several ripples appeared one after another, and a group of Sky-Devouring clan members took advantage of the situation to sneak in. Ling Huyun stood among the group of Sky-Devouring clan members and smiled eerily. Back then, a group of fugitives escaped from the Heavenly Law prison, but they were all sealed by Emperor Xiaoyao's great power. One of the sealing pearls, which contained more than 100 fugitives, fell outside and was picked up by me. It was because of them that I became who I am today. He looked at them surrounded by the Sky-Devouring clan members with a hideous smile and said, "Kill all of you, and I can still roam the world with these murderers." No wonder there were Sky-Devouring clan members who were extinct in the outside world. It turned out that they all came from the Heavenly Law prison. Looking at Yan Feiying in the crowd, Ling Huyun reached out his hand. "Inger, come with me. I will give you the best things in the world." Yan Feiying looked at Ling Huyun, who seemed like a completely different person. In her heart, the second brother who treated her and her husband well and often helped them had vanished into thin air. What replaced him was an extremely vicious and morbid Ling Huyun. Chapter 30-45. Ling Huyun said ferociously, "Fine. Then you can accompany them to the grave. Kill them." As soon as he gave the order, all the Sky-Devouring clan members rushed over. Su Yu sighed silently. It seemed that he had to expose the great sickle of 10,000 calamity. He touched the space storage device with his finger and was about to take action. Suddenly, the barrier exploded. The Sky-Devouring clan members outside were all turned into pools of blood. The Sky-Devouring clan members who were rushing over seemed to feel some kind of danger. They turned around and stared at the outside world without blinking. Ling Hu Yun's heart skipped a beat. He had a very bad feeling. Turning his head to look, he saw a slender and elegant young lady standing outside the barrier without him noticing. She was wearing a light blue dress and had a beautiful face. She stood there like a shy lotus flower, full of youth and vitality. No one knew when she appeared. The only thing they knew was that she was standing there with an irresistible pressure. "Who are you?" Ling Hu Yun frowned. Not only him, but the rest of the clan members were also confused. They did not remember that there was such a young person in the Soul Saint clan. Swoosh! Swoosh! Beside the young girl, 6 figures appeared one after another. They were the 6 ancestors. However, they did not care about the situation at all. Instead, they cupped their fists at the young girl. "First ancestor, why are you here?" "What?" Everyone present gasped. The young girl in front of them was the legendary first ancestor? Not to mention the junior in front of them, no one except the other 6 ancestors knew who she was. The first ancestor had never appeared since she built the ancient well. No one would have thought that the mysterious first ancestor would be a young girl. The young girl raised her eyes and glanced at the other sky-devouring clan members. With a puff, they immediately turned into a mass of blood mist. Su Yu's pupils shrank when he saw this. The sky-devouring clan members were all great saints. How powerful was she to kill them with a single glance? 10,000 saints. Only the 10,000 saints level. The Soul Saint clan had reached the qualifications of the Heavenly clan. However, this ancestor was very low-key and did not go to the Stone Man Palace to be tested. Su Yu was secretly surprised. The 9-star civilization really hid its strength. First, there was the Heavenly Law Alliance, whose strength surpassed the great clans, and then there was the hidden Heavenly clan. Those superficial rankings couldn't be counted at all. The young girl slowly said, "The 6 of you are far too disappointing. The main culprit is in the clan, yet none of you discovered it." The 6 ancestral patriarchs lowered their heads in shame. The girl gently crooked her finger, and a multicolored bead suddenly flew out of Ling Hu Yun's bosom, and fell into the girl's hand. Startled, Ling Hu Yun subconsciously reached out to grab it. However, as soon as the young woman looked up, Ling Hu Yun's entire body went stiff, unable to move. "He will be dealt with according to the rules of the clan." The young girl accepted the sealing sphere and said indifferently. The 6 ancestral patriarchs looked at Ling Hu Yun with murderous intent in their eyes. The culprit who massacred more than half of the younger generation had actually been hiding right under their noses. It had to be said that he was too good at disguising himself, so no one noticed. Evil creature! The 7th forefather made a grabbing motion and pulled Ling Hu Yun over to him. With a swipe of his claw, he pulled 2 fragments out of Ling Hu Yun's head. Those were all soul ancestral skill fragments. According to the rules of the Soul Saint race, those who betray the clan will have their ancestral soul techniques destroyed. The 7th forefather said coldly. With another swipe of his claw, he pulled out a dark red bloodline power from Ling Hu Yun's body. According to the 2nd rule, those who betray the clan will have their bloodlines destroyed. According to the 3rd rule, the cultivation base will be destroyed. According to the 4th rule, the flesh body will be destroyed. According to the 5th rule, the soul will be destroyed. Ling Hu Yun was frozen in place the entire time, unable to even make a sound. It was only in the final moment, when his soul was destroyed, that he finally let out a heart-wrenching scream. Then, he disappeared from the world. Having everything obliterated was a punishment worse than death. "All of you, come with me." The 1st forefather glanced at the other ancestral patriarchs, then turned and disappeared. The other 6 ancestral patriarchs immediately followed him to a secret chamber. The young woman took out the sealing sphere and wiped it with her palm. The crystal sphere became transparent, and one could vaguely see that there were quite a few criminals imprisoned inside. "The sacred mountain's Son of Heaven has not given up on destroying the Soul Saint race," the young woman said calmly. The 6 ancestral patriarchs were silent. At their level, they already knew many of the secrets of the world. They even understood why the Soul Saint race was like a curse, with its members becoming fewer and fewer with each generation. These were all the masterpieces of the sacred mountain's Son of Heaven. Countless eras ago, the destruction of the Soul Saint race's ancestral technique was the doing of the sacred mountain's Son of Heaven. After that, the Soul Saint race declined day by day. The young girl said, "The Xiaoyao Son of Heaven intentionally left this sealed orb behind and let Ling Hu Yun pick it up. How could such an important sealing sphere be left behind so easily? Moreover, it was coincidentally picked up by a junior of the Soul Saint race. Moreover, it was picked up by Ling Hu Yun, who had psychological problems. All the seemingly coincidental things in the world were actually deliberate plans. One move by Son of Heaven Xiaoyao had reduced the future members of the Soul Saint race by half. I'm worried that Son of Heaven Xiaoyao still has something up his sleeve in the Heavenly Law prison. I'll go in and check it out myself soon," the young woman said calmly. "Look after the family while I'm away." "Yes, First Ancestor." Speaking of Su Yu, the appearance of the First Ancestor made Su Yu feel threatened. The other 6 ancestors had already put a lot of pressure on him. What would happen if another First Ancestor appeared? He patted Su Yu's shoulder and immediately swapped their souls back into his own body. "Ling Hu Yang, take care," Su Yu said. Ling Hu Yang looked deeply at Su Yu, his eyes filled with deep gratitude. Su Yu had not only saved him, but he had also saved Yan Feiying and all the juniors of the race. He had even exposed Ling Hu Yun's hypocrisy. Ling Hu Yang had no way to repay such a great kindness. "Brother Su, this gift is for you." Ling Hu Yang took out a small brocade box and stuffed it into Su Yu's hands. Su Yu smiled. "I also have a gift for you. Savor it when you go back." His words stunned Ling Hu Yang. "What gift?" "Farewell." Su Yu looked at the few ancestors who had yet to return and immediately took his leave. Ling Hu Yang walked him all the way to the gate. Yan Feiying accompanied him throughout the city. She looked at Su Yu's receding figure and suddenly felt a strange sense of familiarity. "Have I seen him somewhere before?" Yan Feiying murmured. Ling Hu Yang's gaze was deep as he said, "Yes, in both of our lives." Yan Feiying looked at him strangely. "My husband, why do I feel like there's some unspeakable relationship between the two of you?" Chapter 3046. Without waiting for Yan Feiying to ask, Ling Hu Yang put his arm around her waist and said with a confident smile, "From now on, let's live a good life." Although his body was still weak and his talent was no worse. This was because he had given Su Yu one of his most precious things as a gift. "Don't mess around. Your body is weak." Yan Feiying held his arm instead. Only then did Ling Hu Yang realize that his body had become much stronger. He examined his body in disbelief, and was shocked to find that the obscure power left in his body by the 9 Deaths giant demon had disappeared without a trace. Moreover, there was a powerful life domain in his body that was constantly reshaping his body. Most importantly, that life domain was different from ordinary life domains. There seemed to be a power that surpassed everything mixed in it. What surprised Ling Hu Yang even more was that there was a cold memory left in his body that pierced into the depths of his soul. He covered his head and screamed. But what followed was shock and ecstasy. That memory was none other than Su Yu's understanding and comprehension of the 8 fragments of the ancestral soul technique. It was more useful than giving him the 8 fragments of the ancestral soul technique. Otherwise, with his level of comprehension, even if he was given the fragments of the ancestral soul technique, he would not be able to comprehend them. Ling Hu Yang suddenly understood what Su Yu meant when he said that he had left a gift for him. The body that had been modified by Su Yu and the comprehension of the ancestral soul technique were what Su Yu had left him. But Ling Hu Yang understood that the most important thing left for him was hope for the future. At this moment, Ling Hu Yang suddenly felt that swapping bodies with Su Yu was a turning point in his life. Back to Su Yu. After leaving the Sacred Souls tribe, Su Yu did not meet up with Bai Shui and Xing Gu immediately for safety reasons. He did not want the Sacred Souls tribe to find trouble with him and implicate the two women. He went to a safe place far away from the Sacred Souls tribe and opened the brocade box that Ling Huyang had given him. When he opened it, he could not help but be stunned. It was a piece of memory fragment. These are? He absorbed the memory fragment. As a result, a memory that surprised Su Yu appeared in his mind. It turned out to be the comprehension of the ancestral soul technique that Ling Huyang had obtained. When he was fishing, Ling Huyang's body had caught one, but that one could not be caught again. Su Yu would forever be missing the ancestral technique fragment. He had never expected that Ling Huyang would give it to Su Yu as a gift. He immediately digested those insights and fused them with the 8 ancestral soul technique fragments he had obtained. With a thought, Su Yu's finger streaked across the sky, and a complete golden trajectory flashed across the sky. Success! He had completely learned the ancestral art of the soul saint race. Pa pa pa! Continuous applause sounded out, and a light voice sounded out, "Congratulations, you've learned our soul sacred race's ancestral art." Su Yu subconsciously replied modestly, "You flatter me." Random's heart skipped a beat, and he looked over with difficulty. There was a young girl sitting on a branch of a willow tree not far away, and she was clapping for Su Yu. However, Su Yu wasn't happy at all. In fact, he felt his scalp go numb. After all, that girl was none other than the first progenitor of the Sacred Soul tribe. It was rumored that the most ancient ancestor of the Sacred Soul race had lived for more than a dozen eras. Su Yu quickly regained his composure. Since he had been discovered, he didn't intend to hide it. He said, "You discovered that I had swapped souls with Ling Huyang right from the beginning, didn't you?" The young girl put down her hands and jumped down from the branch. She said calmly, "I was the one who created the soul swap. Tell me, did I discover it?" Su Yu smiled bitterly. The strong men of the All Saints were more terrifying than he had imagined. "If that's the case, why didn't you expose me earlier?" Su Yu asked. The young girl put her fair hands behind her back. "You saved the junior of the Sacred Soul tribe. I couldn't kill you right away." Su Yu took a step back, his eyes solemn. "But you didn't intend to let me go either, did you?" If she had intended to let Su Yu go, she would have pretended not to know anything and simply left. "Correct answer," the young girl said calmly. "You stole the ancestral art of the Sacred Soul tribe. There's no reason for you to live in this world." Su Yu's heart sank. The situation was worse than he had expected. Of all the people who had discovered it, it had to be the strongest ancestor of the Sacred Soul tribe. Now, he might not be able to escape even if he wanted to. "But don't forget the favor of saving my life," the young girl said. "You saved 8 juniors of the Sacred Soul tribe, so I'll give you 1 more day to live. So, from now on, you have 8 days to live. After 8 days, I'll take your life," the young girl said calmly. Su Yu said, "Is the life of your juniors only worth 1 day?" The young girl shook her head. "Don't bargain with me. If the people who dealt with this matter were the other ancestors, you would be dead now. They wouldn't give you any more time." Su Yu clenched his teeth. 8 days. 8 days was not long, but it was not short either. How difficult would it be to escape the pursuit of a strong man of the All Saints? However, Su Yu had his own principles. He would not give up easily until the last moment. Swoosh! He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and immediately displayed the space domain. He chose a random direction and sped away. After using the space domain 10 times in a row, he instantly arrived at an unfamiliar mangrove forest. He could no longer sense the young girl's aura. He believed that he had successfully shaken her off. However, he suddenly heard the sweet voice of the young girl. "Why did you stop? Keep running?" His face stiffened as he looked sideways. The young girl was squatting 30 feet behind him, holding a small stick in her hand. She was hitting the water in the stream, splashing waves. Can't I get rid of her even with this? Su Yu's eyes darkened. Without hesitation, he took out the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations, imbued it with chaotic energy, and chopped at her head. However, the young girl did not even raise her head. She merely lifted her fingers and easily blocked the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations with those seemingly soft fingers. She said calmly, "You'd better hurry up and run. Don't waste your time on meaningless things." While she was still speaking, Su Yu had already drawn out the absolute heaven sword, activated its full power, and fiercely chopped at her. The young girl finally looked sideways, and a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. However, she did not move at all. With a gentle flick of her finger, she deflected the absolute heaven sword. "Is this the sword made by Prince Xiaoyao?" Not only was the young girl not afraid, but she even recognized the origin of the sword. She looked at Su Yu with a hint of coldness in her eyes. "No wonder you came to the Soul Saint clan to steal the ancestral technique. So that's why." Obviously, she had connected the chaotic energy and the absolute heaven sword on Su Yu's body to Prince Xiaoyao. Chapter 3047. Su Yu smiled bitterly in his heart. He did have a deep relationship with Prince Xiaoyao. However, it was a life-and-death relationship. If I told you that I have a life-and-death feud with Prince Xiaoyao, would you believe it? Su Yu asked. The girl shook her feet and said lightly, "Would you believe it yourself?" Holding a sword made by Prince Xiaoyao, possessing the chaotic energy of the Holy Mountain Prince, coming to the Soul Saint clan to steal the ancestral technique, and asking her whether she believed it or not. Su Yu shook his head. "If it were me, I wouldn't believe it either." The girl stroked her hair, looked at the sky, and said, 8 days, not a minute or a second more." What she meant was that Su Yu should cherish his remaining 8 days of life. Su Yu smiled lightly, stood still, and closed his eyes. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind as he thought about all the possibilities. What could he do in 8 days? In Su Yu's memory, there was only one existence that could threaten the young lady and stop her. There was a terrifying skeleton with incalculable power in the pit beside the Mingjian divine clan. However, it was too far away and it would take at least half a year to get there. Time. Too little time was a fatal problem. Suddenly, Su Yu realized something. If there was anything that could threaten the girl, there was only one, the Heavenly Law Prison. There were many dangerous and tyrannical beings imprisoned there, some of which could pose a considerable threat to the girl. Thinking of this, Su Yu did not dare to hesitate. He immediately displayed the space domain and went to the Heavenly Law Prison. 1 day passed. Su Yu stopped at the top of a deserted pavilion, feeling a little tired. Standing here, he could overlook the mountains and rivers in front of him. Among them, 2 giant purple mountains were the most eye-catching. The mountains were bare, without any vegetation. A huge canyon was formed between the 2 mountains. Purple light shot up into the sky, and from a distance, it was a sea of burning purple flames. From time to time, some people came and went, but they were in a hurry, as if they did not want to stay nearby for long. Although Su Yu was far away, he could still feel the strong pressure hidden in the flames, as well as the deep chaotic energy. That was the entrance to the Heavenly Law Prison, an underground prison. Under the invisible flames, there were countless strong stone men. The weakest was at the ancient saint level, and the strongest was at the great saint level. In fact, there might even be a 10,000 saints expert among them. "Is your destination the Heavenly Tao Prison?" The young lady's voice rang in his ears. Su Yu didn't need to turn his head to know that the girl was on a rock 30 feet away from him. Her hands were against the stone, and her eyes were calm as she stared at Su Yu's back quietly. "Are you afraid?" Su Yu asked. The young girl shook her head. "There are indeed people in the Heavenly Tao Prison that I fear. However, they are all imprisoned. You can't use them to threaten me." "Is that so?" Su Yu's eyes were filled with determination as he leaped into the sky above the valley. As he descended, he could faintly see a group of stone men flashing in the flames. A stone golem exuding the aura of a great sage and holding a strangely shaped spear in his hand asked, "Who goes there?" Behind him were many ancient sage stone golems. Su Yu took out the Heavenly Law Alliance's mission scroll and said, "I was entrusted by the Heavenly Law Alliance to mend the Heavenly Law prison." Whoosh, the mission scroll was taken away by the other party. The latter touched the scroll with his finger, and the words, Heavenly Law Alliance, appeared, confirming that it was the real scroll. Take out the document. Not only did they want the mission scroll, but they also wanted to investigate Su Yu's identity. They were very strict. Su Yu followed their procedures and accepted all kinds of investigations and interrogations. After 2 hours, they couldn't find any problems. Only then did they give Su Yu a stone slip. Keep this well. In the next month, you can enter the prison with this stone slip. There is no need to check your identity again. However, after a month, the stone slip will lose its effectiveness, and you will have to replenish it. Su Yu nodded and leaped into the purple flames. The purple flames seemed to be burning fiercely, but they had no heat at all. There was only a strong sense of suppression. Su Yu's cultivation of the middle stage of the Heavenly Law Master had been suppressed to the early stage of the Heavenly Law Master. He was shocked, but he heard the voice from the stone slip. The Heavenly Law Prison has a suppressive effect on the cultivation of all kinds of creatures. Don't be surprised. Su Yu was surprised. You are? I am the 9th Stone Spirit. I am responsible for helping you mend the Heavenly Law Prison, the Stone Spirit said. It turned out that the stone slip was not only a proof of entry into the Heavenly Law Prison, but also a kind of surveillance. It could monitor the actions of the people who entered the Heavenly Law Prison at any time. Once they did anything harmful to the Heavenly Law Prison, the Stone Spirit would immediately sound the alarm. Of course, if the rules were followed, how could the Stone Spirit be a good helper? All the creatures, including the stone men? Su Yu asked. The Stone Spirit answered truthfully, the stone men are the descendants of the Son of Heaven. They are protected by the chaotic energy and are not affected by the suppression of the Heavenly Law Prison. Would the chaotic aura be enough to protect him? This was really a big discovery. In this way, if he stimulated the chaotic energy in his body, his cultivation could be restored to the middle stage of the Heavenly Law Master, which was the level of an ancient saint. Once those strong men of the great saint level entered the prison, their cultivation would fall to the level of an ancient saint and be reduced to the same level as him. Please go to the place that needs to be repaired, the Stone Spirit reminded him. Under its guidance, Su Yu landed at the bottom of the flames. He saw that the ground was a huge transparent glaze. On the glaze, there were many mysterious and dazzling patterns of the formation. Su Yu only took a glance at them and was immediately attracted. His mind and body involuntarily looked into the formation. Fortunately, the Soul Emperor robe in Su Yu's soul sounded an alarm and woke him up abruptly. Su Yu immediately moved his eyes away. He was surprised. What a powerful formation! Just a glance at it could affect one's state of mind. You woke up on your own without my reminder. That's rare, the Stone Spirit said. I've helped at least 8,000 strong men, if not 10,000. This is the first time I've seen someone like you. Su Yu naturally would not expose himself. He changed the topic and asked, Is the real cage of the Heavenly Law Prison down here? Through the glaze, Su Yu could vaguely see narrow cages that seemed to be frozen in the glaze. From time to time, he could see the black shadows in the cages flashing by. Yes, that is the first layer of the cage. There are also the second and third layers, the Stone Spirit said. There are 2 other layers? What kind of criminals are imprisoned in the first layer? Su Yu asked. Extremely vicious people with the strength of great saints. What about the second layer? Criminals who threaten the safety of the 9-star civilization are at the level of all saints. There are even all saints? Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. What about the last and third layer? It's confidential, no comment, the Stone Spirit said. Its answer was within Su Yu's expectations. The third layer must be imprisoning those unknown, ferocious criminals, and it was very likely that the 7 students of the human ancestor were among them. 2 updates will be made up at noon tomorrow. Chapter 3048. Su Yu's heart was pounding, but he remained calm on the surface. Can the repair task only be done here? His current position was only the outer part of the heavenly law prison, not even the first layer. Of course. With your identity, you are absolutely not allowed to enter the inner part, the stone spirit replied. Su Yu was suddenly put in a difficult position. If he could not enter the first layer, how could he enter the second layer or even the final third layer? If he could not enter the inner layer, how could he resist the ancestor of the Soul Saint clan? What identity can I enter? Su Yu asked, unwilling to give up. The stone spirit was silent for a moment, then said, 2. One is a sinner and the other is a stoneman. The so-called stoneman was a great saint-level stoneman, and only they held the key to enter the heavenly law prison. Neither of these identities were easy to obtain. Su Yu's eyes flashed. What are the consequences of forcibly entering? He looked around and saw many seal holes that needed to be repaired. The stone spirit said without hesitation, You will become the prey of the heavenly law prison. Not all the sinners are locked in cages in the heavenly law prison. Some are exiled. Once outsiders enter, they will be the prey they chase. After a pause, the stone spirit reminded him, They have not eaten for many years. In other words, the prey it referred to was a true prey. Those who fell into it would be hunted down as prey and then eaten. Just thinking about it made Su Yu shudder with fear. Unless you had no other choice, you should not choose this path. At this critical moment, suddenly, the sound of fighting came from the corner of the valley. Those who were repairing the heavenly law prison were immediately attracted and rushed over to see what was going on. Su Yu was curious. Why were there people fighting here? Weren't they all here to repair the seal? There were no benefits to fight for. By the time he arrived, the area where the fight was taking place was already filled with people. Su Yu stood at the back of the crowd and looked over with his hands behind his back. He found that it was a human and 2 barbarian bulls who were fighting. The human was a thin young man with an elegant face, but his attacks were ruthless and ruthless. A sawtooth-shaped Taoist sword drew a deep sword mark in his hand. Su Yu was secretly surprised. The sword mark should be the ancestral technique of the South Emperor Sword Saint, but this technique should have been lost many years ago. Moreover, the lineage of the South deity Sword Sage was not human. It could be seen that this person must have learned it from an unknown source. The 2 experts of the barbarian bull race had reached the great sage level. Although they were restricted to the ancient sage level due to the suppression of the land, their various ancestral techniques and powers were not suppressed. They all displayed their own ancestral technique. The collision of 3 ancestral arts was actually still suppressed by the mark of the sword, and it forced the 2 experts of the Raging Bull clan to retreat repeatedly. Let's join forces. The 2 experts of the Barbarian Bull clan flew into a rage out of humiliation. They glanced at each other and actually unleashed a powerful ancestral technique together. That ancestral method was much more condensed than before. The ancestral technique swept out, immediately destroying the remaining sword scars of the young man. If the latter used the sword scars again, it would be very difficult for him to block it. After all, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. If nothing unexpected happened, the young man would definitely be defeated. But who would have thought that at this moment, the young man would suddenly put away the Dao sword and switch to a palm technique? He slapped his palm across the air, and the purple flames in the surroundings collapsed. The heavenly Dao Master Qi in the world also frantically gathered at the center of his palm before turning into an extremely full remnant mark. Su Yu was surprised again. The ancestral technique of the Pandong clan? The Pandong clan was also a clan that had disappeared in the long river of history. Legend had it that their clan originated from the legendary Pangu clan. Although it had never been verified, the ancestral technique of the Pandong clan was indeed extremely powerful and had the great power to split the heavens and the earth. When the palm was unleashed, the heavens and the earth collapsed, and the chaos was completely destroyed. The palm at this moment was the ultimate ancestral technique of the Pandong clan. An outsider had mastered two ancestral techniques that should not have been mastered at the same time. Suyu could not help but think of the figure of a young woman. That was the god thief. The person who specialized in stealing the ancient tombs of the great saint clans and stealing ancestral technique. Of course, she had another identity, Su Kai-er's master. However, the ancestral technique that the young man in front of him had learned was much more brilliant than the god thief. Even his cultivation was far stronger than the god thief. Under the current suppression, the cultivation that he displayed was at the level of an ancient sage, but in fact it should be at the level of a great saint. Coupled with the powerful ancestral technique, his strength could be described as earth-shattering. Break! The young man bellowed, and the two barbaric bulls were destroyed on the spot. The treasures and artifacts that they carried with them were scattered on the ground, attracting many onlookers to snatch them. In the midst of the chaos, Suyu faintly heard their discussion. Hey, the barbaric bulls have always been arrogant and domineering. They didn't even know that they had provoked the Star Ocean swordsman. Haha, so you also recognized him? Nonsense. The Star Ocean swordsman is so famous. How could I not recognize him? I believe that many people here recognized him, but no one reminded the two people of the barbaric bulls. Humph. Those two idiots usually take advantage of their strength to bully others. It would be strange if someone would warn them. But it is strange. With the qualifications of the Star Ocean swordsman, it is not worthwhile to come here to repair the Heavenly Law prison, is it? Shoo. Don't make presumptuous guesses. If you don't want to get yourself into trouble, shut up. Suyu heard them, and his eyes fell on the Star Ocean swordsman. After killing the two people, he silently picked up the iron mask on the ground and put it on his face again. Then, before the stone men arrived, he quietly returned to his original position. The great sage stone man arrived with a group of stone men guards. Looking at the flesh and blood on the ground, he said with an indifferent expression, "Another meaningless killing." He looked around at the crowd and gave them a warning look. I will say this for the last time. No fighting is allowed outside the Heavenly Law prison. If you are discovered again, humph, you will be regarded as a criminal and imprisoned in the Heavenly Law prison. The Heavenly Law prison had many cages to imprison criminals. Disperse. In this way, the crowd dispersed one after another and returned to their original positions to continue the repair of the Heavenly Law prison. The great sage stone man said coldly, "At most 5 days. If the repair task is not completed, all of you get out." The repair of the Heavenly Law prison could not be carried out at a slow pace. So far, it had been going on for several years. The higher-ups were very dissatisfied with their progress and ordered that it must be completed within 5 days. On that day, strong men from the Upper Stone Man Palace would come to check on the situation. If they were found to have not completed the repair, the stone men present would be punished for incompetence. Only 5 days? Suyu's mouth twitched. When it rains, it pours. Was it easy for him to find a good place to hide? In the end, after 5 days, whether they had repaired the seal or not, they would have to leave. He had to find a way to stay and break into the 3rd level. He recalled the stone man's words in his mind and came up with a plan. It seemed that he needed to find a way to be a criminal and enter the Heavenly Law prison. As for how to be a criminal, didn't the stone man say? Whoever fought again would go in. His eyes swept around and fell on a big and burly man not far away. Chapter 3049. Now, he was suppressed to the 3rd stage of the middle stage of the Heavenly Law Master. Suyu could tell that he was a hot-tempered, boorish man. "I'm sorry, brother. This is the first time I've been a bad guy. Please forgive me." Suyu made up his mind. He strode forward and kicked away the repair materials he had just taken out. His face, which was hidden under the black robe, looked ferocious. He deliberately lowered his voice and said, "Damn fatty, I've been annoyed by you for a long time." He swore to himself that he had sinned. In his life, he had never taken the initiative to bully anyone. He had never expected that he would break the rule today. Amit ba, Suyu thought to himself. His eyes were fixed on the boorish man. He was waiting for him to lose his temper. Then, the two of them could fight, and he would be imprisoned in the heavenly law prison. Ah! The boorish man screamed and raised his head. However, he didn't get angry. Instead, he held both of Suyu's hands and said, "Brother, you kicked me well. You really kicked me well." Suyu was stunned. What was wrong with this person? The boorish man looked at the ground excitedly and said, "Brother, you're really a god. You kicked away the confusion that had trapped me for half a month. I didn't know that this was how the seal should be repaired." Suyu lowered his head to take a look. Only then did he realize that he had unintentionally kicked many of the materials into the various fine cracks. Then, the materials melted quickly and fused with the seal, repairing part of it. "Ha ha ha, my mission is almost complete." The boorish man held Suyu's hands and said gratefully, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much." As he spoke, he took out some precious gifts and stuffed them into Suyu's hands. "It's just a small token of my appreciation. Please accept it." "You're welcome." Suyu took a deep breath. He had an urge to beat himself up. How could this work? "I'm going to rest. I'll come back tomorrow. Brother, goodbye." The boorish man did not give Suyu the chance to continue being a bad guy. He cupped his fists and left happily. Suyu looked at the gifts in his hands and made up his mind again. He looked around and found a bearded, middle-aged man with a face full of scars squatting on the ground not far away. He was tall and sturdy, even bigger than the boorish man just now. The ferocity in his eyes was terrifying. This person did not look like a good person at first glance, so he had no qualms about finding trouble with him. Suyu strode forward with large strides and was about to kick him. However, as he recalled his previous mistake, he switched to kicking his shoulder instead. The latter was caught off guard and was kicked to the ground. "Why aren't you greeting me when you see me? Are you courting death?" Suyu said fiercely. As expected, the bearded man would retaliate in rage. But who knew that he would suddenly cover his face with his hands and cry loudly? His voice was strange, like that of a man or a woman. "Boo-hoo, it hurts so much, it hurts so much." The bearded man sat on the ground with his legs wide open. He shouted and shook his chest that was full of thick black hair from time to time. Tears flowed from her eyes. Suyu was stunned on the spot. At this moment, the beautiful woman beside the bearded man could not stand it any more and immediately helped him up. The bearded man leaned on her shoulder and wailed, "Ah shio! I'm so pitiful. I didn't provoke anyone, but I was kicked by him. Boo-hoo! This world is so scary. I want my mother." "Want my mother?" Suyu really wanted to hammer his own chest 300 times to vent the anger in his chest. The beautiful woman rebuked Suyu and said, "Sir, Ahua is a kind and sensible child. Don't you think it's too much to bully her like this?" "Ahua?" Suyu's whole body twitched. He quickly bowed and said, "I'm sorry. It's a misunderstanding." He tossed the gift to Ahua. "As compensation, this is for you." Ahua immediately stopped crying. She blinked her big eyes and accepted the gift shyly. She mumbled, "Thank you, sir. I won't cry anymore." Hiss. Suyu shuddered and quickly left. He looked around and was speechless. Normally, he did not cause any trouble, but the whole world was trying to find trouble with him. Today, it was so difficult for him to find trouble with even one person. Suddenly, Suyu saw the iron-masked man called the Star Ocean Swordsman. Others might be afraid of the Star Ocean Swordsman's power, but Suyu was not. Moreover, this man was cruel and merciless. He was probably someone who would immediately fight back if provoked. After confirming his target, Su Yu made a prompt decision. He strode over and cursed angrily, "Are you blind? Get out of my way!" The Star Ocean swordsman, who was repairing the cracks in the seal, raised his head coldly and said, "Are you looking for death?" He had a chance. Su Yu said sternly, "I told you to get out of my way. Are you deaf?" The Star Ocean swordsman's eyes flickered with hostility. He pulled out his sword and thrust it at Su Yu without hesitation. Su Yu almost laughed out loud. This was the effect he wanted. He raised his hand and grabbed. A defensive ancestral art was unleashed. As soon as the remnant mark appeared, it contained the extremely sharp sword mark, and then it melted bit by bit. The Star Ocean swordsman was startled and attacked even more fiercely. He extended his palm and used the peerless ancestral technique of the Pandong clan. A powerful ancestral technique swept towards Su Yu fiercely. 2 of the barbaric Bull clan's experts had been killed by this move. Su Yu was not afraid at all. He used another defensive ancestral technique. The 2 superimposed defensive techniques had an amazing power. They managed to resist the enemy's mark and caused a loud explosion. Such a great disturbance immediately attracted the attention of many people. What the hell? Is the Star Ocean swordsman crazy? He just killed 2 people and now he is fighting with someone else. No. It is the other person who is crazy. He provoked the Star Ocean swordsman. He is really crazy. The Star Ocean swordsman was not a person to be trifled with. How could the black-robed man be so stupid as to provoke the Star Ocean swordsman? However, to their surprise, Su Yu's strength was extremely strong. He was on par with the Star Ocean swordsman. They were fighting back and forth, and neither could do anything to the other. Furthermore, the huge commotion finally attracted the stone men who had just left not long ago. "Stop!" The stone great sage shouted angrily. Su Yu and the Star Ocean swordsman stopped. The stone great sage said coldly, "What I said just now, you all turned a deaf ear to it, didn't you?" The Star Ocean swordsman snorted coldly. "He provoked me first. Ha! Do you think I believe that?" The stone great sage snorted. The Star Ocean swordsman often had conflicts with people here. Almost every time, it was because of some trivial matter that he deliberately provoked others. How could someone be so stupid as to provoke him? "Guards, throw the Star Ocean swordsman into the Heavenly Law prison." Many stone men rushed over and suppressed the Star Ocean swordsman. The latter was shocked and angry. "I am innocent. Cut the crap. Throw him in," the stone great sage said without hesitation. Soon, the Star Ocean swordsman was taken away. The stone great sage looked at Su Yu, who immediately said calmly, "Actually, I provoked him first. Please punish me." It seemed like the plan was going to succeed. However, to Su Yu's dismay, the stone great sage suddenly laughed and patted Su Yu's shoulder. "Well done. To deal with evil forces like the Star Ocean swordsman, you should resist tenaciously. Only then can you suppress their arrogance. Guards, this person has performed well. Promote him to be the captain of the security team. He will be responsible for maintaining order outside the Heavenly Law prison." As he spoke, he patted Su Yu's shoulder again. "Do well, I have high hopes for you." At this moment, Su Yu was completely confused. Chapter 30-50. A stone man behind him walked over and gave Xia Qingchen an identity token and a stone stick. The stone man said, "With the token, you can command the people who repair the seal at any time. With the stone stick, you can attack them. Whoever disobeys the command will be attacked." Su Yu accepted it helplessly. This was not what he wanted. In addition, if there is an emergency, you can also enter the first level of the Heavenly Law prison with the token to maintain order inside, the stone man added. Su Yu was shocked. He pretended to be calm and said, "Does the first level you mentioned refer to the bottom?" "Yes." The stone man said, "However, You can only enter in an emergency. Anyone who enters at other times will be severely punished. Su Yu said thoughtfully, "What about an emergency?" The stone man said, "For example, if you find someone trying to break out of the prison on the first level and you don't have time to inform us, you can decide to enter and stop them from doing so. Except for this situation, you are not allowed to enter at any other time." Su Yu wore a flattered look on his face as he replied, "I understand. I definitely won't let you down." The stone man nodded and caught up with the stone great sage. His eyes flashed and he said, "My lord, why do you need to add an extra person to patrol, especially an alien?" The important task of patrolling had always been undertaken by the stone men. How could they entrust it to an outsider? The rock great sage's indifferent face revealed a sinister expression. Firstly, this person's strength is great. He's actually on par with the Star Ocean swordsman. He's perfect to suppress those disobedient mission takers. Secondly, do you really think those prisoners in the Heavenly Law prison will be obedient? The stone man's face showed a hint of fear. 20 years ago, they broke the seal and escaped. Now that a crack has appeared in the seal, will they just sit and wait for death? As soon as he said this, the stone men's faces changed. 20 years ago, there was a serious case of criminals escaping in the Heavenly Law prison. At that time, many criminals successfully escaped and caused considerable damage to the Heavenly Law prison. Fortunately, Emperor Xiaoyao appeared in time and captured most of the criminals and resealed them. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, it was said that 20 years ago, all the stone men guarding the Heavenly Law prison died in battle. Many of them were great sage stone men, and their deaths were extremely tragic. Suddenly hearing that something might happen again, which stone man wouldn't be worried? However, you don't have to worry too much. This time, no one will be able to escape. The great stone sage smiled meaningfully. The stone golems calmed down a bit, understanding the great stone sage's intentions. With Su Yu's ground patrol around, once a convict escaped from prison, with his strength, he would be able to hold them off temporarily and give the stone men some time to warn them. Then, he would leave unhurriedly, lest he be attacked suddenly and end up like the stone men 20 years ago. On the ground, as Su Yu watched them leave, he was also pondering the meaning behind his sudden identity as a patroller. Guarding the Heavenly Law prison was a very serious matter. Would those stone men dare to casually appoint someone they had never met to guard it for them? It was obvious that they were up to no good. However, this was exactly what Xia Qingchen wanted. If I wait for the criminals to break out of the prison, the chances are too slim. I'd better enter it myself. Su Yu had the badge in his hand, so after he entered, the criminals wouldn't dare to attack him. However, there were too many people here, so it was better to wait for an opportunity. He silently assumed the role of a patroller, supervising everyone present as they repaired the seals. One day passed. Everyone felt exhausted. In addition to the mental strength required to repair the seals, it was also related to the strong pressure in this place. They were affected by this and felt extremely tired. Su Yu was in the body of Mirror Flower Tianzi, so he was naturally fine. However, since everyone had left, he certainly couldn't stay. Thus, he quietly left with the crowd. Everyone found an area, sat cross-legged, and trained. They would continue to repair the cracks tomorrow. At a certain place, several people gathered, and their expressions were extremely solemn. Su Yu was no stranger to one of them. It was Su Kai-er's former teacher, the Saint Thief. What happened today? Why was the third senior brother captured and sealed in the Heavenly Law prison? The Saint Thief frowned. Is this part of the third senior brother's plan? The one who answered was the sissy man with the beard. He shook his head and said calmly, "No, he was deliberately provoked by an unknown person, which triggered the fight." The Saint Thief raised his eyebrows high. Who is that person? Did he discover us? Is that why he provoked us? Everyone was thinking, and the atmosphere seemed a little tense. If that's the case, then it's over. It's very likely that our every move is being watched by the stone men, someone said in a low voice. The saint thief thought for a long time and shook his head slightly. It doesn't seem like it. If this person is responsible for monitoring us, the stone men don't need to expose him. However, no matter what his identity is, he has already hindered us. We either act as soon as possible, or get rid of him to avoid future troubles. Everyone looked at each other and said in unison, "Let's act as soon as possible." The third senior brother has been imprisoned in the heavenly law prison, and his life is in danger at any time. Then let's act tonight, the saint thief said. Everyone nodded slightly and dispersed like phantoms, ready to wait for the opportunity to enter. At the foot of a mountain, Suyu took a deep breath and looked at the sky. Then, like a tiger or leopard, he jumped into the valley. At the moment, the appearance of the heavenly law prison had been taken over by the stone men, and no one was allowed to approach. However, no matter how tight their defense was, there were still some loopholes. That was, when the patrol teams handed over their duties to each other. Every night there were 2 patrol teams alternating, and at that time, the patrol teams would leave Liuli for about half a cup of tea. During this time, it was the only opportunity to enter the crevice. Once they exceeded this time, they would lose all opportunities tonight. Suyu hid behind the stone and counted the time in silence. When half of the night had passed, Suyu looked over. Sure enough, the patrol team retreated to the edge. Like a phantom, he rushed towards Liuli with vigorous steps. However, to Suyu's surprise, another group of people rushed down from the stone wall of another mountain, not far away. Suyu was shocked. He thought that he had been discovered and the stone men had set up an ambush. Wasn't the other party the same? When they found Suyu, they were all trembling with fear. The 2 sides met face to face in the air, looking at each other. The bearded sissy suddenly recognized him. "You're the newly appointed patroller? Why are you here?" Suyu's heart skipped a beat. He didn't want to be reported for his sneaky behavior. An idea came to his mind. He took out the stone rod and shouted, "I have been waiting for you here for a long time, and you have finally come out. All of you stop, don't move." Chapter 30:51. The expressions of Holy Pirate and the others changed. Had their plan been exposed? "Scatter!" Holy Pirate shouted. He immediately used his ancestor skills and disappeared without a trace. The rest of the people did the same. Under the cover of the night, they all scattered and fled. Not long after, the Stoneman patrol team on the ground rushed over and found Suyu floating in midair. They immediately surrounded him. "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the heavenly law prison?" Suyu took out a token, and only then did the stone people let down their guard. "Don't you know the rules? You are not allowed to come to the heavenly law prison at night," a stone man berated. Suyu said calmly, "I received a secret report that someone is planning to break into the heavenly law prison tonight. I can't be sure, so I came here to set up an ambush. If I find anything wrong, I will inform you. I did discover a group of people with ill intentions just now." The stone golems didn't say anything else. They really did see a group of people sneaking around. "Forget it, just don't do it again. If there's any similar news, inform us first. Let's go back." Suyu managed to escape the calamity and returned to the foot of the mountain expressionlessly. Meanwhile, the Stoneman patrol team notified the Great Sage of the Stoneman's whereabouts. The Great Sage dispatched a group of stonemen to search everywhere to see if he could find out who the culprits were. At the foot of the mountain, Suyu could not help but sigh. How unlucky! There was actually someone who had the same idea as him, wanting to barge into the heavenly law prison while the patrol team was changing shift. It was fortunate that he had reacted quickly. Otherwise, the consequences would not be small. "We can only wait for 2 days, Suyu said helplessly. After tonight's matter, the Stoneman patrol team would definitely increase their vigilance. If they tried to force their way in, they would definitely be walking into a trap. The other side. The group of people who had scattered and escaped gathered together again. A black-robed man hammered the stone wall. Damn it, who leaked our plan? That's right, there must be a traitor among us. Even Holy Pirate deeply believed this. If this was not the case, how could the other party have coincidentally laid in ambush there? Instead, a woman said meaningfully, "Everyone, is there a traitor among us, or does the other party just happen to be plotting something?" As soon as he said that, everyone started to think again. Yes, when the two sides met, they seemed a little surprised. It didn't seem like an ambush. I understand. He was afraid that his evil intentions would be exposed, so he used his identity as a patroller to hide himself. After analyzing, they finally came to a correct conclusion from their panic. Motherfucker. This person has ruined our plans again and again. First, you sent the Star Ocean Swordsman to the Heavenly Law Prison, and then ruined our plan. This person is definitely our stumbling block. Holy Pirate's gaze froze. What do you mean? Get rid of him first. The bearded sissy said, if we don't get rid of this person, it might affect our progress. The few mysterious people nodded. Holy Pirate thought about it for a long time. He shook his head and said, it is best not to act rashly. He is a patrolman appointed by the Stone Man. If anything happens to him, the Stone Man will investigate. We might even be found out. Holy Pirate nodded. Then what should we do? Wait for the right time. God Pirate said cautiously. But, could it be that we're just going to let this resentment go like this? The full-bearded sissy said unwillingly. Holy Pirate's gaze flickered and he said coldly, of course not. This person is a threat. We'd better think of a way to remove his identity as a patroller. The next day, above the Heavenly Tao prison, everyone was busy repairing the seal. They didn't know that someone had tried to break through the seal the previous day. Suyu was patrolling as he pondered. There are only 5 days left, Suyu murmured. In 5 days, I must find a way to enter the Heavenly Law prison, otherwise, even if he didn't check carefully, he could feel that there was a very weak consciousness at the soul level that was monitoring him. As Suyu was in a daze, suddenly, a seal mender from a remote corner came to him in a panic and said, Patrolman, bad news. I have something to report to you. Suyu came back to his senses. What's the matter? I found a new crack, the other person said. Suyu's eyes were secretly shocked. A new crack meant that the stone men hadn't discovered it yet. They could enter from it quietly without being detected. Take me there, Suyu said. The mender immediately led the way in front. He didn't know that after turning around, Suyu's eyes were pale. He stared at his head silently for a while. In that remote corner, the disguised Holy Pirate and several companions were arranging a set of formations. Holy Pirate, can this psychedelic formation really work? The bearded sissy didn't quite believe it. The Holy Pirate said inscrutably, Do you know who refined this formation? How would I know? The bearded sissy was speechless. There were many people in the world who could refine weapons. However, the psychedelic formation requires a very high soul attainment. Otherwise, it would be difficult to succeed. The psychedelic formation emphasized the confusion of people's souls. Therefore, the formation must have a very high soul attainment. At present, the best soul formation came from the Soul Saint clan. They were the only race that could master the soul realm and even had the soul ancestral technique. The illusory formations that they had refined all possessed unimaginable abilities. It was said that as long as the people of the Soul Saint clan understood even a trace of the ancestral technique, they could refine a superior formation that was difficult to find in the outside world. This set of formation flags is said to have been refined by the most outstanding member of the Soul Saint clan, Ling Hu Jie. He is a genius junior who has comprehended 1/3 of the ancestral technique. What? The people present were shocked. The bearded sissy was shocked. How could Ling Hu Jie refine this set of formation flags for you? The Soul Saint clan has a terrible background. What can they not have? What did you use to convince him to refine it for you? Holy Thief pointed at himself and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Do you think I need to buy it?" If that was the case, he would not live up to the title of Holy Thief. Stole it? The bearded sissy stared. To be able to steal something from the Soul Saint clan, Holy Thief was too powerful. In the Soul Saint clan, there were so many terrifying old monsters that they could not be counted. Holy Thief laughed. Of course, I don't have the ability to break into the Soul Saint clan to steal things. I took it from a high-class auction house. This item should be something that Ling Hu Jie specially refined to repay some people's kindness. That's how it ended up on the market. Only then did everyone come to a realization. The bearded sissy gasped in admiration. Your luck is too good. You actually managed to find such a peerless treasure. Considering Ling Hu Jie's attainments in the art of the soul, the hallucination formation he refined would be strong enough to trap a great sage for 10 days. The most precious thing was that the Soul Saint clan rarely refined things for the outside world. For many years, they had not seen the psychedelic formation of the Soul Saint clan wandering outside. Chapter 3052. Everyone's eyes lit up. This was definitely a feasible plan. It was much better than simply killing the patrolman. Suddenly, the bearded man received a message. His face changed as he said, "He's coming." The god thief had just finished setting up the seal and said, "It's done. Get ready." Everyone surrounded the formation cooperatively. At this moment, the formation was activated. An illusory crack appeared in the originally empty area. This was the function of the formation. Even with their strong cultivation, they could not see whether the crack was real or fake. This is really amazing. The bearded man's eyes turned golden. This was his eyesight, which could see through real illusions. Generally speaking, even the eyesight of a great saint could not be compared to it. However, he could not see whether the crack in front of him was real or fake. He had encountered many illusory formations in his life, but none of them could escape his eyesight. No matter how powerful the formation was, there was always a hint of falsehood. There was no flaw in front of him. If he was like this, there was no need to mention the others. It is indeed a product of the Soul Saint clan. It is really incredible. It was the first time the god thief had used it. He was amazed, and then he felt a touch of regret. It is such a pity to use it on this patrolman. Rustle. The sound of footsteps could be heard in the distance. Everyone immediately hid their strange expressions and pretended to be a group of people who had discovered the crack. What a big crack! But it is so strange. I didn't see it yesterday. Should we inform the stone men? This is a new crack. We should let them know first. They pretended to discuss it to attract Su Yu's attention. Su Yu saw it and smiled imperceptibly. It was really a little childish. He had just secretly used the secret soul technique to investigate the leader's thought. He knew it was a scam early on. When he came here and saw the crack on the ground, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. It was just a simple illusory formation that had been fused with the ancestral technique. In his eyes, it was full of flaws. It was a group of people who were watching and discussing it with a straight face. The Lord is here. All of you, get out of the way. The leader separated them and pointed to the illusory crack. This is it. Su Yu's face was solemn as he said, "It really is a crack." He rolled his eyes and said in a deep voice, "To ensure that no criminals will escape from the crack, all of you should retreat to avoid harming you." Holy Pirate and the others understood. It seemed that he had taken the bait. This patroller also wanted to break into the Heavenly Law prison. Now that such a good opportunity was right in front of him, how could he miss it? He wanted to send them away so that he could sneak into the crack. The group of people immediately dispersed but hid in the distance, quietly watching the show. Holy Pirate took out a crystal board. It showed the scene around the psychedelic spell. Suyu walked a few rounds around the illusionary spell formation, continuously observing it. However, he did not step into the illusionary spell formation. The bearded sissy muttered, "Isn't this guy too cunning? Hurry up and take the bait." The others were secretly anxious. Even Holy Pirate was a bit worried. She had paid such a high price, and she could not let it go to waste. However, what made the Holy Pirate's heart sink was that Suyu had left. After looking around for a few weeks, perhaps he felt that something was wrong, so he simply left. Sigh. They all slapped their thighs and sighed. They were about to succeed, but the other party had actually left in alarm. However, just as they were feeling disappointed, Suyu unexpectedly came back and looked around again. Disappointed, they held their breath and watched Suyu's movements attentively. This time, Suyu looked at it for a longer time. After hesitating for a long time, he lifted his right foot and stepped into the range of the psychedelic spell formation. Just as they were about to clap their hands and celebrate, Suyu withdrew his foot vigilantly, shook his head, and then left again. "Hey! Motherf ****, why did he leave again?" The bearded sissy was furious. "Even my small heart can't stand it. I won't wait any longer. Just grab him and throw him in," another mysterious person said angrily. "From hope to disappointment, from disappointment to hope, and finally to despair. Who could stand this?" Even the Holy Pirate was a little angry. He said, "Does this person know that we are monitoring him? Is he deliberately playing with us?" However, as he was speaking, Suyu came back again. This time, he did not hesitate and jumped directly into the psychedelic spell formation. Although they were furious, they were all overjoyed. Motherf ***, he finally went in. This kid is more cunning than a rabbit, but he still fell, didn't he? The Holy Pirate also put down the crystal and heaved a long sigh of relief. At least he didn't waste his energy. "Go and get the token on his body immediately." The group of people immediately rushed to the front of the psychedelic spell formation. They saw that Suyu was really in the psychedelic spell formation, wandering around like a headless fly. The Holy Pirate smiled slightly, grabbed the air, and was about to grab Suyu's token. However, Suyu suddenly extended his hand and pressed down on the badge, then raised his head. The confusion and anxiety on his face disappeared in an instant, and was replaced by a faint smile. The Soul Saint clan's psychedelic formation is quite powerful. Seeing this, the Holy Pirate's face changed dramatically, and he said in disbelief, You didn't fall into the psychedelic spell formation. Once someone stepped into the psychedelic spell formation, they would fall into a huge psychedelic illusion, and they would be unable to extricate themselves. It would be difficult to know what was happening outside. However, Suyu didn't seem to be trapped in an illusion. Moreover, he even knew the source of the psychedelic spell formation. Suyu clasped his hands behind his back and walked out of the psychedelic spell as if nothing had happened. He smiled faintly. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? The Holy Pirate's heart thumped, and he shouted in a low voice, Run, it's a trap. She finally confirmed the speculation in her heart. This patrol had provoked their emotions again and again. He was toying with them. Swish, 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 swish. The Holy Pirate's reaction was the fastest. He turned around and fled. Although the rest of the people were a beat slower, they all knew that the situation was not good, and they all fled one after another. Suyu smiled slightly. It couldn't be better that all of you showed up. It saves me the trouble of finding you one by one and spoiling my plan. Their appearance was exactly what Suyu wanted. He had been a little worried that the next time he took action, this group of people would disrupt his plan again. Swish. Suyu's eyes swept around, and a tyrannical soul realm, mixed with a profound secret technique of the soul, radiated out. The Holy Pirate and the others didn't feel anything was wrong, but they couldn't find the end of the valley, which wasn't particularly large. They couldn't see a single person along the way. The scenes around them kept repeating. Of course, this was their own field of vision. In Su Yu's field of vision, they were all standing in circles. Su Yu shook his sleeves, and the psychedelic spell formation rose from the ground, encircling all of them. From the outside, there was nothing where the spell formation was located. Chapter 3053. In the illusory spell, the holy thief and the others gradually realized that something was wrong, and their minds changed dramatically. We are trapped in the illusory spell. We must break it as soon as possible, or the consequences will be unimaginable. The bearded sissy's heart sank. The holy thief clenched his teeth. We have encountered a master of the soul path. She couldn't understand just what sort of divine being she was facing. Ling Hujie was an ancestral soul saint, but not only was the formation refined by the ancestral soul saint race unable to control him, he was even able to easily use the formation to control them. If she hadn't experienced it herself, it would have been hard to believe. Let's break the spell together. The holy thief sensed Su Yu's intention and said, "We must leave before everyone retreats. Otherwise, the Stoneman Patrol will find us and lock us up in a cage. All our plans will be ruined." They gave up on escaping and gathered together. The so-called spell must have a core. If we concentrate all our strength to attack one spot, we will be able to trigger the core to appear. Then, we can break the core and escape successfully. The holy thief had excavated many ancient tombs, so he had the most experience with spells. Under his command, the 7 people at the scene joined forces to attack the spell in the southwest. Under the powerful attack, they could see the invisible barrier flickering, and traces of complex patterns flashed. In the north corner of the spell, a weak purple light flickered and disappeared. "There!" The holy thief shouted and immediately commanded everyone to attack the purple light. However, the 7 people's joint attack did not cause any substantial damage to the spell. They were still trapped in it. As they tried again and again, the sky gradually darkened. The people were getting more and more anxious. The holy thief gritted his teeth. "Forget it. Let's sacrifice another treasure." She took out a silver brick and exhaled. The brick immediately melted into a mass of silver liquid. The holy thief raised his hand and threw the silver liquid toward the north corner. Pitter-patter! With a series of muffled sounds, the north corner was torn open. The holy thief's eyes were sharp, and he immediately went out. The rest of the people came out in a line and returned to the outside world before the crack closed. "Let's leave quickly." The holy thief looked at the Stoneman Patrol that was slowly descending and immediately led everyone to leave. Safely out of danger, everyone looked unlucky. "We have encountered a difficult opponent." The bearded sissy hammered his thigh. He regretted looking for trouble with Su Yu. God Thief looked worried. "Who is this person?" As they discussed, little did they know that a figure was silently looking down at them from afar. "Oh?" As Su Yu looked at them, a profound light flickered in his eyes. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Today was the last day to repair the seals. All the seals had been repaired according to the plan. Night fell. The purple light in the valley became even more intense, illuminating the surroundings with a purple radiance. It was especially horrifying. Because the seal had been completely repaired, the patrol team was much more relaxed and was no longer as strict as before. The 7 mysterious people sneaked to a corner of the valley. There was an imperceptible crack here, only wide enough for a person to pass through. It was concealed by an ingenious illusion technique, so no one noticed it during the day. That seal was the crack that Holy Pirate and the others were responsible for. They had purposely created the illusion that they had successfully repaired it, just to wait for this moment. After confirming that the patrol team did not appear, they quietly entered the crevice and entered the Heavenly Law prison. This scene was witnessed by Su Yu, who was standing on top of the valley. He murmured, "I knew I could save a lot of effort by following behind you." However, Su Yu did not act but continued to observe. His eyes moved from time to time as if he was looking for something. Sure enough, Not long after the 7 people entered, a group of stone people came out of the crevice. The leader was none other than the stone great sage. He sneered. I knew someone couldn't wait and chose to attack tonight. Come on, seal the seal completely so that they can't return, the stone great sage ordered. It turned out that they had expected that the seal would not be completely repaired. Someone must have left an entrance behind. One had to admit that this stone sage was quite smart. Yes. Several stone people immediately began to repair the last crack. If it was not repaired properly, the holy pirate and the others who had broken into it would never be able to come out. The stone people immediately began to repair. One of the stone people said, My lord, it seems that we can give a satisfactory explanation to the superiors who will come to inspect tomorrow. The stone great sage said, That's easy to say. Our greatest luck this time is that we didn't give the prisoners a chance to rebel. They thought that the prisoners would take advantage of the repair of the crack to break out of the prison. However, for the next few days, nothing similar happened. They didn't know whether it was an accident or they were just lucky. Soon, the crack was completely repaired. The stone great sage finally breathed a sigh of relief. He rubbed his eyebrows and said, Phew! Finally, it's a success. Congratulations, my lord, for successfully repairing the seal this time. It was obvious that the stone people were very happy. The chaos that they had imagined did not happen. Leave some people to patrol, and the rest can leave, the stone great sage said. He thought of Suyu, who had been personally appointed as a patroller by him. He added, In addition, if you find the patroller, arrest him immediately and throw him into a cage. The surrounding golems were all at a loss, feeling a bit confused. The stone great sage said, This person's purpose is not pure. He came to the heavenly law prison for another purpose. Now that he is useless, it is time to send him to the heavenly law prison. The great stoneman saint was quite wise. He could tell that Suyu had an ulterior motive. My lord, why do you say that? The stone great sage's eyes were deep. Don't you understand that on the first day he came here, he deliberately caused trouble and wanted to take the opportunity to enter the heavenly law prison? It turned out that he had seen all of Suyu's actions that day. However, as shrewd as he was, he pretended not to know and entrusted Suyu with important tasks until today. The stone people nodded and went to hunt down Suyu. Most of the stone people dispersed. In the valley, a young man walked out with his hands behind his back. It was Suyu. He came to the northeast corner and tapped his toes lightly. The crack, which was covered by a secret technique of the soul, shone with a faint purple splendor. It turned out that it was not only the holy pirate and the others who had left a crack, but also Suyu. Moreover, Suyu had expected that the holy pirate and the others would be cheated by the stone people, so he had been observing them secretly until the end. Trying to play tricks with me? I'm afraid you are still too naive. Suyu smiled lightly. He knew early on that the seemingly hardy stone great sage did not have good intentions. From the beginning, he had been wary of him. Chapter 30:54. With a leap, he jumped into the heavenly law prison through the fissure. Before he went down, he executed a soul secret technique to cover up the crack. With his soul attainments, it was difficult for ordinary people to see through him. Whoosh! As soon as he jumped down, Suyu heard the cold wind whistling in his ears, and a pungent stench assaulted his nostrils. When he opened his eyes, the world was gray and the stench was everywhere. This place has been sealed for too long, and the bad luck in it hasn't dissipated. Suyu raised his arm and found that a layer of his clothes had rotted away. Moreover, the bad luck combined with the pressure in the heavenly law prison to form a lethal poison. The black robe on his body was made of extremely hard black silk, and it was indestructible. A blow from an ancient saint might not be able to tear the black robe, but now it was directly rotted by the atmosphere. Suyu released the power of the heavenly law master to protect himself, and quietly took out the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations. Since even the air here was so dangerous, it was obvious how powerful and dangerous the prisoners who could survive were. Kid, let me out. I will teach you all the ultimate techniques of my life. Suddenly, a rough voice came from behind Suyu. Suyu instinctively swung the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations behind him. He only looked back when he heard the sound of an explosion. Inside an almost transparent crystal pillar, a tall, black skeleton man was stuck to the crystal pillar, staring straight at Suyu. He was staring at the 1-inch mark on the crystal pillar, which had been left by the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations. What kind of weapon is that? Quick! Don't stop, let me out, the skeleton man said anxiously. Suyu calmed himself down and said calmly, Do you think I am stupid? The crystal pillar was dozens of feet thick, and it would take at least 10 days for him to attack it with the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations day and night. Just the fact that it was imprisoned alone showed how dangerous it was. Kid, the Heavenly Law prison is very dangerous, and I don't know how many prisoners have not been imprisoned. They haven't seen any living creatures for many years, and they want to eat anyone they see. Without the protection of experts, do you think you can survive? Suyu turned around expressionlessly and looked around vigilantly. Do you think I'll be safe if I release you? The black skeleton continued, Don't worry, I'm not a vicious person. I was only suppressed because of what I did to resist the sacred mountain back then. Let me out and I'll teach you everything I've learned in my entire life. Ghost race? Suyu's heart was moved. He hadn't heard of the Ghost Clan for a long time. The last time he had heard of them was when he was in the Zhenlong continent, where he had met the Ghost Clan's great emperor. Who would have thought that the ghoul's origins could be traced back to great sage patriarchs? Gazing at him, Suyu said, Fine, hand over your Ghost Clan's ancestral technique, and I can let you go. If he used all his strength to activate the scythe of 10,000 tribulations, he would be able to break through it completely. Ancestral art of the ghost race? What are you doing? Asked the ghost race great sage warily. Suyu replied calmly, You can't expect me to work for nothing, right? You're already like this, what's the point of keeping the ancestral method on you? The ghost race's great saint's eyes turned and he slowly said, All right. As he spoke, he blew out a mouthful of air, which condensed into a complete remnant mark in the air. Holding the remnant mark in his palm, he said, Young man, you break a crack in the crystal pillar, and I'll send the ancestral method out through the crack. Then we'll be even. As long as a crack appeared in the crystal pillar, as a great saint, he had plenty of ways to get out of it. Get out of my way. Suyu waved the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations and slashed it at the crystal pillar. Clang! With a violent explosion, the 10 heads of the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations attacked with all their might, creating a deep crack in the crystal pillar. It's open! It's open! The ghost race's great saint shouted excitedly. He never dreamed that he would be able to get out of this predicament one day. Where's the ancestral method? Suyu asked. However, the ghost race's great saint retracted his palm and swallowed the breath back into his stomach. A creepy smile appeared on his face as he said, Young man, haven't you heard of a bunch of lies? Do you even believe the words of ghosts? As he spoke, the black skeleton of the ghost race's great saint turned into a black liquid and flowed out of the crystal pillar. Then, it condensed into a skeleton again. He sneered coldly and looked greedily at the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations in Suyu's hand. It's really a good treasure. Give it to me for safekeeping. Suyu held the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations and said with a faint smile, If you have the ability, you can come and get it. Young man, I know you have some ability, but you probably don't know who you've let out, do you? The ghost race's great saint laughed loudly. The one standing in front of you is the omnipotent and invincible god of war in Jiutian City, Guebu Air. I've been killing people like scything flax in my life. Occasionally, I eat people without spitting out their bones. Since you've let me out, I don't want your life anymore. Just give this sickle to me, Ing Shou. He had been imprisoned here for 3 eras, and most of his treasures had been destroyed by the suppressive power of this place. He had nothing useful in his hands, so Su Yu's great sickle of 10,000 tribulations came at the right time. A bunch of lies, aren't you? Su Yu laughed and waved his hand. The Tai Soul calming bell appeared. When it appeared, a light soul sound wave rippled out. When ordinary ancient saints heard it, they were in great pain. However, when it fell on the ghost race's great saint's ears, he just scratched his ears. Oh, can you give me something fierce? This little thing can't do me any harm. Su Yu replied calmly, is that so? He put the Tai Soul calming bell near his mouth, took a deep breath, and blew a mouthful of air at it. Then, he uttered an extremely sharp "ja." The "ja" word merged with the Tai Soul calming bell, and then blended with the Tai Soul calming bell's soul attack. The sound wave, which was supposed to be invisible, unexpectedly turned into a golden "ja" word. Bang! 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 More than 10 "ja" words fell on the ghost race's great saint, and he immediately wailed like a ghost. While he was jumping, a "ja" word fell on his crotch mercilessly. Then, a faint sound of something breaking rang out. Oh, my treasure! The ghost race's great saint's face turned red, and he covered his crotch with his hands. The rest of the "ja" word fell on him one by one, knocking him to the ground and pressing on his body, so he couldn't get up. If you have the guts, let me go. Let's fight for 300 rounds. The ghost race's great saint grimaced in pain, but he didn't want to admit defeat. Puff! Su Yu stomped on his chest, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Why should I have a fair duel? Isn't it good to step on you like this? As Su Yu spoke, he stepped on him a few more times. Chapter 30:55. Indeed, judging from the fight between them, he didn't have the slightest bit of the strength of the master of the heavenly law. That was why Su Yu could easily subdue him. Otherwise, it would have taken him a lot of effort to deal with a great saint at his peak. I don't think so. Su Yu stomped harder. I feel very honored to be able to kill a great saint who didn't keep his word with my own hands. As he spoke, Su Yu put the great scythe on his neck and said, Can you guess whether my scythe can cut it off or not? The great scythe was so cold that the great ghost saint shivered in fear. He smiled awkwardly and said, What if I guess wrong? Su Yu said with a faint smile, If I guess wrong, I will try to cut it off with your head. The great ghost saint shrank his neck and said with a smile, What if I guess right? If you guess right, I will reward you with a scythe. Su Yu's smile deepened. The great ghost saint showed a smile that was uglier than crying. No matter if I guess right or wrong, I will be punished with a scythe. You can't bully me like this. Su Yu shrugged indifferently. Then you can choose not to guess. Hearing that, the great ghost saint's eyes lit up. Yes, but what will happen if I don't guess? If you don't guess, I will cut you into pieces. The great ghost saint couldn't help but cry. No, I am so pitiful, so weak, so young. Can you bear to kill me? Su Yu looked at his tall and hideous body and said with a slight twitch of his mouth, Which part of your body is related to these 3 words? The great ghost saint realized what he was talking about and said hurriedly, By the way, this is not my real body. This is to frighten people and enhance my majestic image. As he spoke, a black fog emerged from his body. In Su Yu's eyes, the tall black skeleton gradually shrank into a small, exquisite, jade-like skeleton that was 1 inch tall. It opened its big watery eyes and said pitifully, Spare me! Su Yu was stunned. At this moment, the great ghost saint not only looked cute, but also didn't look gloomy or evil at all. If he was in a group of women, he would definitely cause them to scream. However, Su Yu was not a woman. Spare you? Of course. Su Yu said. Hand over the ancestral technique first. The little jade skeleton sighed and said, Fine. He opened his mouth and spat out the remnant mark. Su Yu grabbed it with one hand. The remnant of the Ghost Clan was indeed useless to him, but Shenga could totally use it. Young hero, please let me go. I was wrong, sob sob sob. Hearing the old man's weeping, Su Yu's hair stood on end and he said, I can't let you go, but I can spare your life. With a thought, 8 domains appeared between his brows. Each domain contained a faint trace of absolute beginning force. His soul domain was even more corporeal, not like an illusory domain at all. Realm and God. God. You can cultivate all 8 domains at the same time, and when you reach the pinnacle, you can even use the power of the absolute beginning? The great sage's eyes went wide. Since when did the holy mountains allow people to cultivate all 8 domains? Of you was and God, as expected of an old monster who had lived for several eras. His eyes were indeed sharp. Cut the crap. If you want to live, then open up your soul and allow me to brand this brand in the depths of your soul. Otherwise, I won't let an old monster who can't differentiate between friend and foe go. No, no, I don't want to. The great sage of the ghost folk shook his head and looked around at the 8 domains, especially the soul domain. I'm a great sage of the ghost folk, a man. How could I be a slave? Even if it was him, he had no confidence that he could break free from the soul domain imprint of that grade. Perhaps he would become this youth's slave for the rest of his life. Okay, then I'll send you to the netherworld. Su Yu activated the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations decisively and slashed it at his neck. The great saint of the ghost race sucked in a breath of cold air. Stop, stop. Am I joking? The greatest hobby of a great sage of the ghost race is to be a slave. The scythe of 10,000 tribulations stopped abruptly on his skin. Su Yu asked, You aren't lying? The great saint of the ghost race replied sincerely, Of course. The greatest hobby of a great sage of the ghost race is to be a slave to a strong man like you. Come on, let me experience the power of my master. Let me be excited. Let me be excited. The little skeleton closed his eyes and revealed a look of enjoyment. At the same time, he opened his soul completely and looked like he was going to enjoy it wholeheartedly. Su Yu felt a chill run down his spine. How could the soul imprint become an indescribably embarrassing thing from the little skeleton's mouth? He flicked his finger and imprinted the imprint into the little skeleton's soul. You are really disgusting, Su Yu said in admiration as he released the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations. The little skeleton jumped down and said with a smile, Thank you for your compliment, master. Shameless. Su Yu was a little confused. How could he release such a shameless thing? The little skeleton jumped up and down and said, Ah, my benevolent and great master, your magnificent figure has guided me from evil to good. Your benevolent heart has melted my dirty heart. You cut the crap. Take me to the lowest level. Su Yu kicked him away. The little skeleton rolled on the ground and hurriedly got up. He praised shamelessly, Ah, master, your sweet kick is a gift that I've been yearning for even in my dreams. Su Yu's veins were bulging. He had really released the wrong person. Again? Luan Yu Jun by Zuma Ing? Lie. The little skeleton shuddered and immediately led the way in front of Su Yu. However, in a way that Su Yu couldn't see, the little skeleton quietly took out a golden iron ball from his sleeve. Streaks of black light were flowing in the iron ball. It was obvious that there was an extremely dangerous destructive power inside. Humph, I am a great sage of the ghost race. How can I be subservient to others? The little skeleton snorted coldly in his heart. You want to control me with a little imprint? My ghoul race is most proficient in the art of soul separation. What was imprinted just now was only a small part of his soul. Even if it was lost, it wouldn't hurt his foundation. The most important thing was that the imprint couldn't detect any of the little skeleton's true thoughts. Even now, when he was about to kill Su Yu by surprise. The reason why he had been holding back was that he knew he only had one chance. Su-yu had a lethal weapon like the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations in his hand. He had to kill the little skeleton with one blow. Master, look up in the sky. There is a flying pig. The little skeleton suddenly pointed to the sky. Su-yu raised his head subconsciously. The little skeleton turned around and jumped up, ready to smash the golden iron ball in his hand at Su-yu to kill him. However, before he could do anything, the great sickle of 10,000 tribulations had already reached his neck. The little skeleton's body froze in midair, cold sweat dripping down his back. Chapter 30:56. Clatter. The little skeleton was sweating profusely and stuttered, unable to speak. Why are you sweating so much? Su-yu's smile deepened. What is that in your hand? The little skeleton wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled apologetically. Master, I suddenly remembered that I have a treasure to give to you. My body and heart belong to you, so of course the treasure will be given to you. Su-yu smiled and took the golden iron ball from his hand. He looked at it casually and smiled. Is that so? Then I will accept it. Yes, yes, yes. Just take it. This is what I should do. I'm very happy, very happy, very happy. The little skeleton laughed and cried. At this moment, his heart was in pain. The only powerful defensive treasure he had was taken away by Su-yu. The golden iron ball was the Hautian golden pearl that had dominated the 9-star civilizations for 3 eras. There were a total of 10 in the world, and he had obtained 3. One of them had killed a strong all-saint, and one had injured the emperor. There was only one left. Although the power of the Hautian golden pearl had been reduced by half after 3 eras, it was less than 1,000th of what it used to be. But it was more than enough to injure a strong all-saint. Now, this kid had taken advantage of it. Damn it! The little skeleton continued to lead the way and finally muttered. Su-yu followed behind him and said, What did you say? The great scythe of 10,000 calamity was placed on his neck again. The little skeleton was extremely frustrated. He pouted and said, I miss my grandmother. Sob. Su-yu smiled. I advise you to behave yourself and take me to the 3rd level. Don't try to play any tricks. Of course not, of course not. I will definitely take you to the 3rd level. What, you want to go to the 3rd level? The little skeleton finally reacted and was shocked. What are you going there for? Su-yu stopped and said meaningfully, Why? Don't you know the way? The little skeleton looked terrified. I know, but I am not going there. I will not go there even if I die. Even if I activate the mark and turn you into ashes. Su-yu held the great scythe of 10,000 calamity. The little skeleton looked very determined. Even if you kill me, I will not go there. Su-yu frowned. Why? Why? Do you know who's being held there? The little skeleton shivered and said, Those imprisoned there are all peerless demons who eat people without spitting out their bones. In the last era, I once personally saw 7 powerful creatures covered in demonic energy being escorted down to the 3rd floor. The little skeleton's face turned pale. At that time, a troll glanced around, and all the wandering prisoners turned into demonic aura and were devoured. We are the prisoners in the cage. Fortunately, the cage stopped them and prevented them from dying. That's more than 100 prisoners we're talking about. Their combined strength should be close to myriad saints, right? But what was the result? He turned into Devil Chi with a single glance. If you go to the 3rd layer, no matter how tightly sealed they can kill you and me with a single glance. Su-yu took a deep breath. He couldn't believe that it could kill so many strong men with a single glance. The Ren ancestors' 7 disciples were much stronger than he had imagined. So, I won't go there even if you beat me to death. The little skeleton sat on the ground, determined not to lead the way. Su-yu nodded. Well, if you don't want to go, then I won't kill you. I'll just seal you in the cage again. As he said that, he picked up the little skeleton. The little skeleton panicked and quickly changed his word. Don't be so hasty, I'll think about it. Su Yu didn't give him time to think and threw him back. The little skeleton was so scared that he hurriedly climbed out of the cage and said, I'll go, okay? However, you can only look at them from a distance. You absolutely can't get close, let alone alert them. Su Yu said without hesitation, okay. The little skeleton led the way in front reluctantly. However, he had only taken a few steps when a group of people suddenly appeared in front of them. In the fog, the other party probably didn't see Su Yu and the little skeleton. They ran over in a panic, and their faces were full of panic. Su Yu was speechless when he saw them. Those were not bystanders, but the saint thief and the others. It was at this moment that they finally saw Su Yu. They instinctively stopped in their tracks while they were running. However, after pausing for a moment, the saint thief turned his eyes and led them to speed up. Needless to say, there must be some danger chasing them, and they wanted to shift the blame to someone else. Su Yu grabbed the little skeleton and immediately turned to escape to the side. He guessed in his heart that it was the wandering prisoners who were chasing them. However, when he glanced behind them with his transparent eyes, Su Yu was taken aback. What was chasing them was not a prisoner, but a crimson tide that was spreading towards them with a sweeping momentum. What are those? Su Yu transmitted the scene he saw to the little skeleton's soul through the brand. The little skeleton was shocked. The Yellow Spring tsunami? Damn it, I was wondering where the wandering prisoners outside had gone. It turns out that the Yellow Spring tsunami is coming. Run to the east, there is a Mount Wuyin there, which can prevent the Yellow Spring tsunami from drowning. Would there be a tsunami in the Heavenly Law prison? Moreover, was it very dangerous? As Su Yu was thinking, a scream came. He saw a person who was lagging behind was suddenly overtaken by the tsunami and drowned in it. The person was instantly melted into a mist of blood. During the whole process, the person did not even have the chance to scream, let alone resist. The tsunami was far more than what was in front of him. It was boundless, and its momentum was getting more and more powerful, almost as if it was going to swallow the sky and the earth. Su Yu's scalp was numb. He did not dare to stay and ran to the east. However, the Yellow Spring tsunami was much faster than him. The little skeleton cried, I might as well stay in the cage. The crystal column of the cage had the effect of isolating the Yellow Spring tsunami, so there was no need to worry about it. Now, as soon as he came out, he encountered the Yellow Spring tsunami, which happened once in a decade. What was going on? Su Yu was too lazy to listen to him. Close? Oh, account stupid? Instantly destroy? Suddenly? Rush to the word, hook, occupy song xianing? The bottle occupied the Fey target. In this way, he could barely keep a distance from the Yellow Spring tsunami and not be caught up quickly. However, as time went by, the distance between them was still slowly narrowing. He was having a hard time, but the Holy Pirate and the others were having an even harder time. The Holy Pirate was fine, but his remaining 5 companions were a mess. It was all thanks to the Holy Pirate's brilliant ancestral technique that they did not get caught up by the Yellow Spring tsunami. Otherwise, they would have been wiped out. However, they could not hold on for too long. The Heavenly Law prison had a very powerful pressure. The great saints only had the cultivation of the ancient saint. The Holy Pirate's cultivation was suppressed too much, and it did not take long for him to run out of strength. Chapter 30:57. Su Yu did not even turn his head around. Save them? What was the reason? When he used his space domain and carried so many people at the same time, the consumption on his body was quite large. In such a dangerous Heavenly Law prison, overexerting oneself was tantamount to suicide. As for the generous reward, it was fine to just listen to it. Whoever took it to heart would truly be a fool. He continued to use his space domain to hurry along. However, the Holy Pirate said angrily, Su Yu, you still have a heart of stone. Su Yu raised his eyebrows in disbelief. The other party actually knew his real name? After arriving at the 9-star civilization, Su Yu had never revealed his real name, so only a few people knew about him. I am Kai Er's teacher. Holy Pirate pulled down his mask and revealed his true face. Her feelings were equally complicated. She felt both angry and amused. It was really like the flood had rushed against the Dragon King's temple. One family did not recognize the other. In the past few days, both sides had been scheming and competing with each other. In the end, it turned out that they were people who already knew each other. Suyu was startled. "It's you." He was surprised that the person who came was Holy Pirate. After a moment of hesitation, he waved a hand, and a spatial domain immediately enveloped her and her companions. Without a doubt, Suyu's space domain had exposed him. There were only a handful of 9-star civilizations who were adept at using the space domain, and there was only one heavenly prince, and that was Suyu. What a surprise! The divine pirate was brought to Suyu's side by the space domain. Her pretty eyes were filled with joy. Suyu laughed at himself mockingly. "I was surprised, but where did the joy come from?" Holy Pirate said, "If your goal is the Heavenly Law prison, we might be able to help you." Suyu probed the space domain, which had obviously decreased in size, and said, "If you're not a burden, then thank me 1,000 times. I don't expect any help from you." In response, the Holy Pirate smiled mysteriously. "Suyu, you'd better not say that too soon." She seemed to be very confident in herself. Crash! The Yellow Springs tsunami behind him pressed down with a momentum that could engulf the heavens and earth, quickly approaching. Suyu didn't dare to be distracted anymore, and he used the space domain to its fullest. However, the Yellow Springs tsunami was still pressing closer and closer. "We're almost there. Do you see that faint blue light?" Many little skeletons suddenly exclaimed. Suyu raised his eyes and looked over. Amidst the dense fog, there was indeed an unusual blue radiance on the horizon. It was obviously taller than the surrounding mountains. That was Mount Wuyin, the highest mountain in the first level of the Heavenly Dao prison. It was the only place that could withstand the Yellow Springs tsunami. "Charge!" Suyu tried his best to lead the group of people toward Mount Wuyin. Gradually, he broke through the fog and Mount Wuyin was right before his eyes. Only when he got closer did he realize that the so-called Mount Wuyin was not a naturally formed mountain, but a mountain of corpses. Countless experts had died in the Heavenly Dao prison, but their corpses hadn't been destroyed. No one had collected their corpses, and they had all been piled up here. Over the course of countless eras, they had piled up into a mountain of corpses. At the peak of the corpse mountain stood thousands of people. They were all wandering prisoners of the Heavenly Law prison. The reason why the stone golem sage didn't expect the prisoners to charge into the crack was because the Yellow Springs tsunami was coming. The prisoners couldn't charge into the crack, and could only preserve their lives. The underworld tsunami was already behind him, and it began to corrode Suyu's space domain. Any space domain that came into contact with the spring water collapsed and was destroyed, seriously affecting Suyu's space travel. "It's catching up." The little skeleton hugged Suyu and whimpered, "Wise and great master, I don't want to die." The poor great saint had his cultivation suppressed, and the only powerful treasure he had was taken away by Suyu. Now he was crying and begging for help. "Quiet!" Suyu's mind was racing. His space domain had been pushed to the extreme, and he couldn't reach Mount Wuyin before the Yellow Springs tsunami arrived. If this continued, everyone would die here. Bang! A tall wave of the Yellow Springs came crashing down and enveloped everyone. Everyone couldn't help but panic, and some even began to scream. At the critical moment, Suyu suddenly activated the space domain and swept the corpses from Mount Wuyin over, piling them up to form a wall above their head. Walala! The Yellow Springs water splashed on it, but it couldn't decompose the corpses. They flowed down the wall of corpses. Everyone who was alarmed by the false alarm felt their hearts tremble with fear and their faces turned pale. The Holy Pirate was secretly amazed at Suyu's reaction. At such a critical moment, he could still think of using the corpses to resist the Yellow Springs tsunami. Since the corpses had become a safe place for the prisoners to avoid the Yellow Springs tsunami, it was obvious that the corpses were not afraid of the Yellow Springs tsunami. It was perfect to block the Yellow Springs water. It was easy to say, but among the people present, except for Su Yu, who else realized it? She couldn't help but think of Su Kai, often saying that her father was proficient in calculations. She didn't believe it at first. Unless one had foresight, no one in the world could do this. However, combining this scene with the scene where she and others were trapped in the illusion by Su Yu, she couldn't help but believe it. Su Yu was indeed a person who could scheme the heavens. Taking advantage of the moment when the tsunami waves fell, Su Yu displayed the space domain and took everyone forward a huge distance. Mount Wuyin was right in front of them, only one step away. However, no one expected that when they approached Mount Wuyin, the huge momentum of the Yellow Springs tsunami had already arrived one step ahead and hit Mount Wuyin. Unable to shake Mount Wuyin, the sounds bounced back from the impact, transforming into an incomparably ferocious force that pushed them back. Behind them, the Yellow Springs tsunami swept across the world, reaching a height of 100 feet and pressed down fiercely. Su Yu and others were as small as ants under this overwhelming tsunami. Even if they condensed the corpses again, they couldn't stop the fate of being completely swallowed by the Yellow Springs. Before they had time to rejoice, they all fell into a deep despair. Only Su Yu gritted his teeth, unwilling to give up the last hope. Great Scythe of 10,000 Tribulations! Su Yu shouted, and the 10th head of the Great Scythe of 10,000 Tribulations appeared. The head slowly opened its eyes and glanced at the mighty Yellow Springs tsunami behind it. In an instant, a horrifying scene appeared. The 100-feet-tall Yellow Springs tsunami disappeared into thin air. Along with the Yellow Springs tsunami within 100 miles, the ancient land, and the crystal pillar that sank into the Yellow Springs, everything disappeared without a trace. On Su Yu's forehead, the sleeping Tao Tai's eye wriggled restlessly, producing a strong reaction. Su Yu immediately restrained the power of chaos and restored the Great Scythe of 10,000 Tribulations to its original state. Without giving the Holy Pirate and others a chance to ask questions, Su Yu displayed the space domain for the last time before the second wave of the Yellow Springs tsunami crashed down, bringing everyone to Mount Wuyin. Stepping on Mount Wuyin, Su Yu felt a sense of security. However, it wasn't absolutely safe until they reached the top. Chapter 3058. The Yellow Springs tsunami behind them was still surging. If they did not hurry to reach the top of the mountain, there was a possibility that they would be swept back. After a few dozen breaths, they finally reached the top of the mountain, and a very dark remnant was very obvious. It meant that the Yellow Springs tsunami had reached the highest point here. Phew! Holy Pirate and the others breathed a sigh of relief. They sat on the corpse mountain, exhausted, and looked at the roaring Yellow Springs tsunami. Boom! The 1,000-foot-high Yellow Springs tsunami slammed into the corpse mountain, making an earth-shattering roar. The corpse mountain also shook violently. Everyone grabbed hold of whatever they could to avoid falling into the Yellow Spring. After several impacts, the water level of the Yellow Springs tsunami slowly rose and was barely stabilized. Holy Pirate was completely relieved. Finally, we are safe. As long as there were no accidents, the Yellow Springs tsunami would slowly descend after reaching the highest point. Safe? Let's look behind us first. Su Yu did not relax his vigilance. He held the Great Scythe of 10,000 Calamity in his hand tightly. The danger he faced was not only the Yellow Springs tsunami, but also the people who were taking refuge here. They all had a common identity: prisoners. As vicious and evil as they were, when a group of outsiders suddenly appeared in front of them, what would they think? Was there even a need to say? It should be known that every single one of them had been imprisoned here for an epoch. Coupled with the vile environment here, even if there were some prisoners who had a conscience in the beginning, could they still be kind after being worn down by the environment? Holy Pirate was shocked and immediately turned his head to look. There was a trace of fear on his face. He saw thousands of prisoners on the top of the mountain staring at Su Yu and the others with blood-red eyes. Their eyes were full of greed. In particular, when they found out that Holy Pirate was a woman, the passion in their eyes became more intense. The great scythe of 10,000 calamity in Su Yu's hand was also their object of greed. Just now, Su Yu used the great scythe of 10,000 calamity, which shocked their hearts. If such a peerless treasure fell into their hands, who would they be afraid of in the heavenly law prison? Under the countless greedy eyes, the air on the mountain suddenly froze. The prisoners stared at them, their greedy eyes getting deeper and deeper. However, they seemed to be afraid of something and did not make a move. Crack! Finally, the long silence was broken by a short, fierce-looking creature with a full beard. He screamed, "If we get that scythe, do we still need to be afraid of the Brahma Heaven Sea?" Whoosh! His short figure was like a phantom, and while his voice was still lingering in the air, he had already arrived in front of Su Yu. His short limbs were extremely flexible, and he grabbed the great scythe of 10,000 tribulations in Su Yu's hand. Su Yu saw all of his movements and was about to finish him off with a casual swing of the sickle. Suddenly, a dark red thread shot down from the top of the mountain. The thread arrived later, piercing through the short creature's head and piercing through its forehead. The short creature didn't die. It stopped and endured the pain. Large beads of sweat rolled down its face as it said with a trembling voice, Lord Hong Luan, spare me. I've said it before, during the Yellow Spring tsunami, all fighting is forbidden. Since you've publicly disobeyed the ban, you should pay the price, a cold voice said. Then, with a flick of the red line, the short creature's head was shattered into a mist of blood. Those restless creatures who were also about to attack and snatch the treasures all withdrew their feet and withdrew their strength. Everyone's faces were filled with deep fear. At the same time, the crowd parted. Through the crowd, Su Yu saw a small woman sitting cross-legged on the top of the mountain. She was short, only a foot long. At first glance, she looked like a little girl, but her face had the vicissitudes of a young woman. Most importantly, she had 8 arms and 4 eyes. There was also a mysterious halo on top of her head. At first glance, she looked like a deity. 8 arms and 4 eyes. Su Yu was surprised. Why did she look so familiar? It seemed that in the distant past, he had seen this strange race before. However, he couldn't recall it at the moment. The 8-armed girl closed her eyes without expression and said indifferently, "Anyone who violates the ban will end up like this." No wonder these prisoners were so restrained. Not only did they not swarm to snatch things, but they also did not kill each other. Being in the heavenly law prison, how could there be no conflicts between these prisoners? Now that they had gathered together, there was no disturbance, which showed how powerful the 8-armed girl was. "Why did you only come in now?" There was a whisper of blame in the crowd. Looking in the direction of the voice, it was none other than the Star Ocean swordsman. "Brother Star Ocean," the Holy Pirate said excitedly. His tone was full of excitement and awe. The rest of the people were also in awe of the Star Ocean swordsman. "Come up quickly, the water of the underworld is coming up." The Star Ocean swordsman waved his hand, and the Holy Pirate and the others immediately followed. When passing by Su Yu, the Holy Pirate stopped and said, "Come with us." This time, the 5 of them all owed Su Yu a great favor. "No need," Su Yu said lightly. He was used to being alone, so he didn't need to go with them. "Okay, we will remember your kindness, and we will repay you." The Holy Pirate and the other 4 met up with the Star Ocean swordsman. The latter said, "Your behavior is too disappointing. After I was imprisoned, I have been waiting for you. In the end, you came only now. I missed a great opportunity." Not only did he not understand the dangers that the Holy Pirate and the others had experienced, but he also criticized them. The Holy Pirate apologized. "I'm sorry, something happened in the middle." She glanced at Suyu quietly and did not mention him. Nonchalantly, she asked, "What opportunity did you miss?" The Star Ocean swordsman sighed. "The day I came was when the water of the underworld was about to come up. All the guarding ferocious corpses in the passage had retreated. That was the most suitable opportunity to go to the next layer. It's a pity that I couldn't split myself, so I could only watch the opportunity pass by." Hearing this, the holy pirate and the others were full of regret. The passages between the different layers of the heavenly law prison were specially arranged by the holy mountain to guard them. The passage from the first layer to the second layer was a nameless ferocious corpse. According to the information they had, the ferocious corpse was extremely powerful. It could swallow the sky and spit out the earth. It was extremely difficult to deal with. If they encountered it, even the great saint strong men would die. If they had come earlier, they might have been able to avoid a head-on confrontation. However, we are not completely without a chance. The Star Ocean swordsman's eyes flashed. When the water of the underworld recedes, the ferocious corpse should not appear immediately. As long as we calculate and seize the time, we might still be able to avoid it. The eyes of the holy pirate and the others suddenly brightened. That was great. "There is always a way out," the holy pirate exclaimed. "I will prepare the Nirvana artifact and the formation." However, the Star Ocean swordsman pressed her hand down and shook his head slightly. With a look of awe, he quietly pointed to the 8-armed woman at the peak of the mountain. "Don't act rashly. She has set a rule. During this period, you are not allowed to use any offensive objects at will. Otherwise, the fate of the short creature would be the best proof." "Who is she?" the holy pirate asked fearfully. What kind of people were the prisoners of the heavenly law prison? All of them were unruly and ferocious people, but they were willing to listen to the words of an ugly girl. Just thinking about it showed how terrifying she was. Chapter 3059. The Star Ocean swordsman said slowly, "Members of the Yin-Yang business caravan." Among the 5 holy pirate people, some of them looked confused. Some of them were tired, and some of them looked lost. Only holy pirate's pupils shrank. He asked, "Are you talking about the Yin-Yang merchant team created by the descendants of the Taichu Path Master?" Very few people had heard of the Yin-Yang merchant group, because it had not appeared in a 9-star civilization for at least dozens of eras. It was said that it would occasionally appear in low-level civilizations like a flash in the pan. When people received the news and rushed over, it had already disappeared without a trace. The reason Holy Pirate knew of its existence was that when he was robbing the grave of a great saint family, he found a stone tablet by accident. The stone tablet recorded the secret of the Holy Clan's rise. Many years ago, the ancestor of the Holy Clan accidentally met the Yin-Yang caravan and exchanged his most beloved woman for a mysterious spiritual liquid. After consuming the spirit liquid, his body, which was originally an ordinary creature, was transformed, and he became a member of a superior race with a special constitution. His talent was far beyond what it had been in the past. In the end, he used this opportunity to gradually develop and establish the great sage aristocratic family. After that, Holy Pirate often paid attention to news about the Yin-Yang merchant team. However, the description of them seemed to be taboo. There were no records of them on the surface. Only some ancient tombs would have a few words about them. That was why Holy Pirate was so shocked. She suddenly raised her head and stared at the unprepossessing 8-armed girl. She sucked in a cold breath. Was that the legendary member of the Yin-Yang caravan? She's very strong. My initial estimate is that she's at the peak of the Great Saint realm, but I don't rule out the possibility that she's already at the 10,000 Saint realm. The Star Ocean swordsman said in a low voice, "Before you came, she alone killed hundreds of prisoners who besieged her." Hiss! The prisoners who had encircled her were at least ancient sages to great sages, but she had actually managed to kill them all in a single breath. What kind of peerless strength was this? Before the Yellow Spring tsunami came, she set up a rule on the corpse mountain. Before the yellow spring ebbs, no one is allowed to argue. Otherwise they will be killed. The Galaxy Swordsman looked at the other party carefully. Holy Pirate was terrified. He was indeed a member of the Yin-Yang merchant team. His power was so frightening that it made people feel hopeless. Walala! At this moment, the waters of the Yellow Springs surged up. They had just submerged the old marks when they stopped rising and just stopped there. Seizing the opportunity, Suyu immediately sat down with his legs crossed and began to replenish his energy. Both his chaotic energy and his own power as a lord of the heavenly law had been severely depleted. The former was still manageable, as the stone heart would slowly recover on its own. However, the power of the master of the heavenly law could only be recovered by absorbing the surrounding chi of the way. Suyu raised his head and looked around, the corners of his mouth twitching slightly. Because this place had been sealed off from the rest of the world for a long time, there wasn't much path energy left, and all that was left was a horrible stench. Even if he meditated for 100 years, he might not be able to fully restore his power as a heavenly law lord. This was not a surprise. Otherwise, the little skeleton wouldn't have been subdued by Suyu without being able to fight back. If the Tao energy in this place was normal, the little skeleton would have recovered to its peak state. Fortunately, there is an ancient and domineering ancestral technique on the returning ruins divine steel. Suyu closed his eyes, his hands drawing a clear mark in the air at the same time. A scene that left everyone shocked appeared. In the atmosphere, extremely thin Tao energy appeared. It was close to his body, far to the horizon, all of it gathering in front of the ancestral method traces. The prisoners present were immediately in an uproar. Look, he can actually gather the meager Tao energy of the heavenly law prison. Oh my God, am I seeing things? The Tao energy here is so thin that it can't be absorbed at all, but he can actually separate it from the turbid atmosphere. What clan is he from? What ancestral technique is he cultivating? All of a sudden, the commotion quickly quieted down. From the peak of the mountain, a pair of eyes as sharp as thunder shot out, penetrating their bodies, causing their hearts to go cold. When they looked back, they were terrified to see that the girl had opened her eyes at some point in time. Then, they were all shocked to see that she actually stood up, walked down the mountain slowly, and walked towards Suyu. Her eyes were sharp and confused as she came in front of Suyu. Where did you learn it? The girl stared at Suyu and asked calmly. Suyu opened his mouth and sucked in all the Tao energy. Then, he replied, I learned it by accident. By accident? The girl's eyes were deep. This is an ancestral technique that appeared in the same era as the Taichu Taoist master. It is one of the ancestral techniques that he personally created. Until now, it has not been passed on to another clan. You are really unintentional, what a coincidence. Really? Suyu only knew that there were traces of ancestral techniques on the ultimate ruin divine steel, but he didn't know that there were still ancestral techniques on it that had not been passed on. I also think it is a coincidence, Suyu said calmly. The girl stared at Suyu, and her eyes became more and more profound. Who are you? Her eyes seemed to be able to see through Suyu. You obviously have a chaotic aura, but you are not a descendant of the Son of Heaven. You are a bit like the Son of Heaven, but your soul is not. Suyu's face was expressionless, but his heart was in turmoil. This girl had only looked at him a few times, but she could see through him so clearly? Who on earth is she? I am, of course, the same as you, a prisoner who was imprisoned here, Suyu said. The girl looked at Suyu and shook her head. She did not say anything more. Take care of yourself. The girl silently returned to the peak of the mountain and closed her eyes again. Suyu took a deep look at her, then closed his eyes again. He refined the mass of Tao energy just now into the strength of the master of the heaven law to recover his loss. Time passed little by little. After a full 3 days, the water of the yellow spring finally began to ebb. The water level continued to fall at an alarming rate. When Suyu was at a loss of what to do, the holy pirate walked over and said in a low voice, "Do you want to move with us? Now is the best time to enter the second level." Suyu refused without hesitation. "Sorry, I prefer to move alone." "Well, if you want to go to the second level, follow the yellow spring." The holy pirate transmitted all the information he had to Suyu. This made Suyu's eyes light up. This information was quite valuable. "Thank you." The holy pirate waved his hand. "No need, we are also indebted to you." Suyu immediately looked at the water level that was falling. He followed the water of the yellow spring down the mountain. As soon as he moved, the prisoners all over the mountain became restless. They followed Suyu not far behind. Once the water of the yellow spring receded, the 8-armed woman's prohibition would lose its effect. At that time, no one would stop them from doing whatever they wanted. The little skeleton jumped up and caught up with Suyu. He grinned and said, "Boy, you seem to be in a bad situation." "I'm fine," Suyu said calmly. The little skeleton said, "You remove my prohibition, and I will tell you a way to get rid of them. What do you think?"